Hey guys, Sean here. Welcome to the F1 Word and to some race reaction for the 2024 Sao Paulo Grand Prix. What even is this weekend? What a fantastic Grand Prix that was. Start to the whole weekend has been absolutely bonkers, and that race fit in absolutely perfectly. What a great race. I loved that. So much fun to watch, and the result as well, brilliant. I mean, if you're looking for a title decider in Abu Dhabi, I think that's probably gone now. I think we could agree on that. You never know in Formula One DNF, blah blah blah, but I think we know this is going one way, as it was always going to do. But what a stunning drive from Max Verstappen. Great race, full stop. Oh, I don't know where to start. I'll tell you where we'll start. Thank you for joining. Hope you're all okay. There is a poll in chat as always. Please rate the 2024 Sao Paulo Grand Prix. Great, good, okay, bad. 86% of you have said it's bad. No, you haven't really. 86% of you have said great, 8% good, 4% okay, and 2% were probably watching Manchester United versus Chelsea rather than the Grand Prix, because you're wrong. It wasn't a bad race, and I don't often call you out on being wrong, but you are wrong. That was, what a race. What a race. So much to get through. I'll give you a warning now. My notes are probably not as comprehensive for some of the top three teams, let's put it that way, as maybe they should be, and I kind of got to a point where I gave up. It is also worth letting you know that everything you see on screen right now is provisional, and it will not change during the stream because I don't quite know how to multitask and do all that and mess around with graphics. So that's as it stands, but we have got a number of drivers in with the FIA, so we'll keep an eye for those results as well. So bear with us a little bit on that one. We'll try and bring them to you as if and when they come in. Lots in the steward's room, lots of action. Let's say a very good afternoon, good evening to Stuart. I mean, what a terribly boring race.
Honestly, this whole weekend is like being trying to follow a Christopher Nolan film. What was happening? Well, what a bunch of twists. Looking at the grid, just no other information. If you looked at the grid and then you tried to guess what the result would be, this is not it at all. What a phenomenal drive from Max Verstappen. Absolutely peerless. He wasn't a class ahead. He was 3 classes ahead. He was in F0, I guess. Put everyone to shame, really. While everyone struggled, he seemed to have absolutely no problems at all. Fully deserved win. I think even if he hadn't got just that little bit of help from the red flag, I think he still would have got that win. The speed he has, especially at the end. Whew. And yeah, as you sort of said on the off, I think what looked this morning perhaps like McLaren's biggest chance to get Norris to take a huge chunk out of the driver's shop. The opportunity I've been waiting for absolutely flipped on his head. That's pretty much buried now. But yeah, I don't know where we're going to start with this one because I think every driver had a story to tell.
Yeah, and I have warned that notes might be a bit all over the place because how many times could you write this? Max Verstappen, brilliant move up the inside, late braking move. So much was going on, trying to keep up with it all and make the notes. And then I'm sat here typing away on my notes and suddenly hear Crofty shouting a look, and then I'm typing something else somewhere else. I don't know what's going on. So we'll do our best. It is just a reaction, not a review. But yeah, we will start for the first time since June this year with Max Verstappen. He is a race winner again. His 8th win of the season. Only his 8th win of the season, by the way, compared to last year. That's insane. And he's just basically put 1.5 hands on that Drivers' Championship trophy now with an absolutely incredible drive. I know Lando Norris made a comment post-race, and I've seen it in chat as well, about luck. But I will argue with anybody tonight, quite happily, that even without that luck, Max Verstappen was in this to win it today. He went from P17 to P10 in like a metre. It felt like he was absolutely flying through the field. He had the pace in clear air. He was quicker than the leaders. He was closing up on everyone. The only question mark for me is around getting behind sort of, was it Tsunoda, Leclerc and somebody else, and that little gaggle there where he couldn't seem to get through. That may have held him up a bit more, but I think he had the pace around the pit stops to make that jump if we hadn't had a red flag. And then I think he would have been able to chase down those at the front. Whether he got past, I don't know, but he was in this for the podium today, and I think he was in contention for the win, even without the red flag. Yes, there is that slice of luck, but he, again, put himself in that position. Fantastic drive. I agree with you, Stuart. 17th on the grid. Nobody predicted that podium. Nobody predicted Verstappen for the win today. It's just unreal. And what a roller coaster of emotions as well. I think he made that point after the race in Ted's notebook in his interview. He was saying that, you know, this morning, which it was only this morning when we had qualifying, he's down in 17th place, and oh my God, you know, Lando Norris, what a chance, as you said, Stuart, to take a chunk out of the lead. I'm going to have to do something special today. And then today we're talking about a 62-point lead with 80, 84, 86 available, something like that. I think I saw a stat somewhere that I think Max Verstappen, Lando Norris has to win every race, set every fastest lap, win the remaining sprint, and Max can finish 6th at every race and still be champion. I mean, it's done. So incredible drive. I don't want to acknowledge the luck because I don't agree. I do agree with it, but I don't think it's fair to take away from his drive with that. But it's got to be mentioned. But I just think. Do you agree, Stuart? Was he in this for the win? It was that first lap, wasn't it, where he got up to like P10. I think he got past Hamilton into turn 1 for like P11 or P10 or something, right at the sort of at the end of the first lap and onto lap 2. I think.
Yeah, everything just seemed to open up with him, and he seemed to find grip on that first lap that other people couldn't. He had a good run into turn 1, but actually, I think with everyone hustling them, having a little battle with themselves, he seemed to just drive around people turn 1, turn 3, and have a great run down that straight to turn 4. Picked up 7 places from his starting position and didn't really look back. And yeah, Leclerc seemed to be the only one who could actually hold him up. I thought maybe Piastri, especially, you know, as he's clearly been ordered to help Norris for the rest of the season. Maybe not after this, but up at this point, I thought Piastri would be able to be a bit more of a defense because he's not, you know, he's not someone to give up position easily. But even then, I think Verstappen just surprised him, came from so far back into turn 1 and was past him before I think Piastri even knew what was happening. So just unstoppable, really. I think, as Verstappen said, he wasn't really expecting a win, but he felt confident he could make up a lot of positions because he thrives under these conditions and maybe was able to make what has been, I guess, a Red Bull that's not quite as competitive as a couple other teams at the moment, make it work in these exceptional conditions. But boy, did he. And actually, and we're going to see this with a few teams who finished pretty high today or did pretty well. Very surprising difference between him and his teammate, who was on the radio struggling, couldn't pass, had no grip. He complained about, especially in that first half. And whereas we saw just Verstappen cutting through the grid like cheese, soft cheese.
So very soft cheese, a bit like my orange juice this morning. If you weren't listening to the stream, that would mean nothing to anybody, but there you go. I said it anyway. I did want to make this point actually because Rolly makes a statement in chat, and it was my next point on my notes around the luck argument. Rolly, so I'll give you the shout out. Rolly says it's not lucky if you don't pit because you can keep the car on track on worn tyres. That was my next point around the luck thing, was that he, in those conditions, which I thought were borderline red flag anyway, in some parts of the track, in those conditions on those tyres to keep that on track, like Esteban Ocon, that's what I'm saying by they've put themselves in that position. They've taken that gamble. They've kept the car on track. You know, this sorry to bring him into it right now, so we're talking about Verstappen, but this driver, Esteban Ocon, that everyone keeps telling me is dog shite, kept it on track, and they got rewarded for it with the red flag. Norris could have stayed on track and made that call and overruled the team. Russell could have done the same. They chose not to, and they missed out this time. But the thing is, Stuart, we know Formula One, next time we have a race like this, it might swing the other way. It's just the way it goes, isn't it, with red flags and safety cars. Yeah. Sometimes they go for you, sometimes they go against you. But I think stunning drive from Max Verstappen today, thoroughly deserved. And I don't see any way back for Lando Norris now in the championship. And I think that's part of maybe why people have brought the comments up in chat, the lucky comment and things like that. I think that maybe some of that's born from frustration in a way because he knows it's done and he's made the mistakes today as well as a bad strategy call or an unfortunate strategy call by the team because that goes your way another day, doesn't it? So I think that was what part of it was. But I can't fault Verstappen today. Thoroughly deserves driver of the day. And I have a stat for you as well, Stuart. I don't know if you might have seen this one. I'm going to read it to you anyway.
Go for it.
Where is it? I wrote it down somewhere. So from his final 11 laps, 10 of them were good enough to set the fastest lap of the race. That is a statement drive. That's quite clear to me.
That's a great stat. And I'm not surprised because I was watching the timing screen and most of the sort of, I don't know what you call it, the final part of the race after the safety car restart at the end. He was going purple fairly constantly, like setting fastest lap, and no one else was getting anywhere near him. It was a hell of a drive, and I do need to add, while I think Verstappen was by far the secret sauce today, that Red Bull team, I mean, they have got their strategy together. They've got their sort of race day. I think this is something that puts, I think, Red Bull a step ahead of some other teams often. It's their race day management during a session, during a race. They seem to know what's going on, especially with Max. They're able to manage Max. They seem to have a good strategy. They seem to be able to deploy it well. Other teams, I think, a little bit more, and this is something the kind of thing we'd speak about with Ferrari in years gone by, that kind of like fumbling the ball, not quite having a confident, well-executed plan as the race is unfolding. And they just seem to know, because, you know, as I don't know who commented, they could have easily, when the safety car came out, and other people pitted, or the virtual safety car, they could have taken that moment. That's saves you time in the pit stops. They could have gone in with everyone else, but they didn't. They had the confidence to stay out. You know, in a race like this, you do kind of wait for a potential safety car to grab yourself a cheap pit stop, but they didn't take it. They had the confidence. They kind of knew they could make this work, and possibly things would come to them, and they did. So I think that comes from confidence as a team and confidence in what Max can deliver. And again, you could say the same for Alpine with what they did today.
He makes a difference as well, doesn't he, Max, as a driver? You look at Perez's struggles today compared to what Max did. I mean, it just highlights the difference between the two drivers. No shade on Perez at all. He's just not on that level, and Verstappen delivered today. It was incredible. A couple of super chats. Thank you very much to Valentine for popping in a super chat. Really appreciate your support, mate, and thank you for this morning as well. Good to see you in the chat. And Bill Asher, hello, Bill. Good to see you again. Says, with Max, you could argue that bad luck during qualifying saw him out in Q2. Luck has a way of balancing out. Thank you very much, Bill. I will say, and Jonty could back me up in chat, I did message him and say about time we saw some luck go Red Bull's way this weekend. It did feel like everything was kind of falling McLaren's way at times, didn't it? So I did wonder pre-race whether maybe we might get something like this that might swing things, because sometimes that works out. I know that's, you know, fate, luck, whatever, I don't know, but that's sometimes how it goes. But yeah, thank you very much for your super chats. Really appreciate that. I think that was a fantastic drive. I've not got much else to say. My notes: P11 by end of lap 1, P10 passing Hamilton into turn 1, good late move. Lap 5, another nice late move into turn 1, but this time on Gasly for P9. Lap 10, another great late move up the inside of Piastri, who I think could have defended harder, but there we go. Turn 1 for P7, took P6 on lap 11 at turn 8. Looked like a rather easy move up the inside of Lawson. He stuck it in,
a squeeze, I think. I would say Lawson didn't defend as hard as he does against Perez, but I don't think he just handed it over. I think there was a little bit of a sharing of the track, I think.
I don't think anyone defends as hard as Lawson does against Perez, if we're being honest on that one. Got a run at Leclerc at turn 1, but Leclerc defended and held him off, and then took the lead from Ocon at Sainz. Sainz safety car restarts after Sainz's crash, got the safety car, and then he got Ocon at the restart. That's as far as my notes went, because after that he just sort of disappeared, didn't he? But just a fantastic drive. It's as simple as that. Thank you to Rix's as well for your super chat. Says, never thought that hearing the Netherlands anthem will make me happy, and yeah, fastest lap after, as you said, statement drive. What a race. Interesting if start shenanigans will result in anything. We'll get to that shortly, don't worry. And Brad, thank you very much for your super chat. Says, I want whatever Matt Bryan is smoking. I've not seen what Matt Bryan is saying, so I've not seen it, but I'll take your word through it. Thank you very much for your super chats and your continued support. On Sergio Perez, we'll go through the teams we always do. On Sergio Perez, I don't think there's not a lot to say, to be honest. Stuart spun exit of turn 8 on lap 1, had a go at Lawson into turn 1 on lap 55. Lawson fought back to that defending thing. A little bit of contact. It was looked at, but I'm glad they didn't even look at that, the stewards, really, because what's the point? Then went wide at turn 4 and lost a place to Hamilton. Ended up P11. Copy, paste from the last 10 races, it feels like. Just simply not good enough. And that's it. That's all I'm going to say on Perez, because I don't want to sit here and just absolutely slate him again like we seem to every week, it feels now. Although I think slating is harsh, maybe. Criticising fair criticism?
I I think so to an extent. I think what I will say, uh, slightly in a sense, I think the first half of his race was bad. He came on the radio, said it's hard to overtake. He was struggling for pace. He wasn't making up positions, and in direct contrast with Verstappen, who was shooting his way up the field, um, kind of up to the red flag period, really. Yeah, it was a bit of a disaster. He didn't make it past 16th position until the pit stops elevated him slightly. Second half of the race, I think he was more competitive. His sort of Lawson Hamilton fight, he was kind of in it quite a bit. I was enjoying him sort of rubbing shoulders with those. Like he ultimately kind of lost the position in all of that, despite moving forward. But he did seem a bit more feisty and racy at that point. And you could say, yeah, one of them was an RB and one of them was Hamilton, who came out of this race acting as if all of his pets had died. So, not as competitive as cars as Verstappen was facing, but he did seem a little bit more on it in the second half of the race. I'll give him that. But his we can't really blame his qualifying as much this time because they both got caught out by a strange session. But yeah, he didn't make enough ground in the early part of the race to be able to pay it off in the second half of the race. So ultimately ended up out of the points, which is not what they want. So yeah, not good enough. Occasionally showed a flair, but at the wrong moments and not consistently enough, I guess.
Yeah, again, it feels like it's just copy paste. I agree with the second half of his race, to be fair to him, but it's back down to that. I know quali was just unfortunate, but it is back down to the same argument. He shouldn't really be racing Liam Lawson and Lewis Hamilton this weekend. I mean, his car, he was struggling with his car so much, he was nowhere for much of it. So you'd think Perez in that car that's just won so dominantly in the end, as it turned out, should be doing better than that. But again, it's just rinse and repeat with the answers, isn't it? So I don't want to keep going on about it on Checo there, but I think final thing on Red Bull for now till we get to Q&A later, I'm sure, but would you say driver's title done for Verstappen, but Red Bull probably not going to win the Constructors? Because that's kind of where I am today.
Yeah, I mean, you need a miracle. He's 62 ahead of Norris. After Vegas, after the next race, there's only 60 points left on the table. So in theory, if Verstappen needs to gain 2 points over Norris, and it's kind of over, really. So,
yeah,
and I based on the previous 21 races, I feel that's not going to happen. But they, you know what? McLaren gave it a good go. They didn't have enough in the first third of the season to make this second 2/3 of the season work. That Red Bull were a much more formidable force then, and all the power to them. They earned it by coming out of the gates strong, and this race really cemented it. And I'm actually, to be honest, I'm kind of glad we had at least this race. Like Red Bull may kind of, if other races are more normal in the last 3 weekends, we may see sort of Red Bull kind of Verstappen hanging around third or fourth maybe, and not being as on top of things. So I'm glad he had one big, this is who I am. I am a 4 times world champion, and I've earned this. Don't forget, like if he didn't win another race again since June or whenever it was, it would have seemed a bit like a. I don't know. It's just it would have been an unfortunate end if we just didn't see some Verstappen greatness at the end, and I'm glad we got to see it today. A big win and a big shot across the bows, really, and a reminder of who he is.
Yeah, I agree. And one final point to make as well. Imagine if this had been the title deciding final race of the season. Just saying. Just saying. Anyway, Enstone is where we're going next. Thank you to Johnny for your super chat. Says the Alpine Redemption 2026. It's happening. Thank you to Lyle for being a member for 2 months. Fantastic race. Need more of these with rumours about RB possibly buying Sainz contracts. As a Perez fan, I'd rather see Sainz replace him than Lawson. Thank you very much for your super chats and your support there. But I was saving your super chat there, Johnny, just for this moment. Alpine, yes. If you have not seen the race and you're just tuning in, second team today, Alpine, Esteban Ocon P2, Pierre Gasly P3. the fuck? That's how I feel today on that one. And my notes, there's next to nothing in them because, to be honest, I wasn't expecting to have to pay too much attention to them. Esteban Ocon, I suppose, really just drove excellently in the conditions, like we said earlier. When that rain really started to fall, he took the chance to stay out. He kept his car on the track when others weren't. Fantastic performance. At one stage, actually, Stuart, I thought he was going to win it. I think he pulled out about a 4-odd second gap over Verstappen before the safety car came out again, and I sort of thought he couldn't, could he? But he was quick, and that car was quick. And Alpine was saying afterwards that the car's just been quick in the wet conditions all weekend. It was nowhere in the dry. In the wet, it's just worked. Fantastic drive from him, and Pierre Gasly as well. I feel both of them kept themselves out of trouble. I said it this morning. This is one of these races where you just need to get the core right on tyres. Just get the core right on tyres and finish the race, and you could bank some big points. And I kind of feel that's a bit like what Alpine did here. I don't feel like, and you're going to correct me, I'm sure, but I don't feel like we saw an absolute ton of stunning overtakes or anything like that. I feel like they kept themselves out of trouble, kept it clean, dealt with everything that came their way, and they've banked a big haul of points, which has moved them from 9th, second bottom in the standings, all the way up to 6th place, ahead of RB, Williams, and Haas. Haas, who were top of the midfield, we thought, coming into this weekend. What a race. What a performance from both drivers, but particularly Ocon, I think.
Yeah, I mean, that constructors thing boost is the main story, I guess, coming away from this. Because actually the race wasn't that exciting. If just from the perspective, they just drove a good race and picked up the points at the end. No shade on them at all. I mean, they drove a great race, but as you say, not particularly thrilling. But gaining 3 positions in the constructors, and we've spoken a little bit about this because we've sort of, we've said, I think whatever, like Aston Martin are kind of settled in 5th now. There are kind of people in midfield, they're pretty settled now, unless someone does something crazy. And this is the kind of thing that can sometimes happen. A midfield team can grab a huge bag of points just from being in the right place at the right time. We have a wet race, and quite similar to sort of Ocon's only F1 win, where he sort of he had a good weekend and then suddenly found himself in a good position and just drove a great race to collect the win. If you look at the lap chart for the race, so you can follow what actually happened. Essentially, they just drove their positions, gained a load of places in the pit stops they didn't take, and then just drove from there. I mean, Gasly jumped from 9th to 3rd through all the pit stops that happened around him before the red flag came out. So, and then just drove 3rd to the end, and Ocon obviously gained up to 1st and lost out to Verstappen in the end. But yeah, stunning. I was absolutely fascinated by Ocon's pace after the red flag restart, because I thought Verstappen would be all over him, and he was starting to reel him in a little bit before that Sainz safety car, and I probably would have overtaken him considering how fast he got. But the pace in Verstappen during that middle stint between red flag and safety car compared to after it was fascinating. I thought. I don't think Ocon could have kept up that pace, but yeah, it did seem like he was going to do a little surprise victory there. So yeah, you got to say, well earned. I think in this case, maybe the team was a bit of the secret sauce. The drivers didn't crash in qualifying. I think not crashing in qualifying was actually a key thing this weekend. We saw a lot of people having a lot of mistakes in qualifying, so they got they started well. Ocon particularly started at a great position. Yeah, they had just a very clean Sunday afternoon and made it work.
And that's all they needed to do, wasn't it? I keep saying all, like it's easy. Like, just drive around slow, we're fine, it's fine. But the question did come up there from Nick in chat. I did have a quick look into this earlier before it went live, because I said it to you, Stuart. Alpine were asked about how they just gone with a superior wet setup, because, as Nick said, they were today genuinely faster than McLaren. And Alpine say no. Esteban Ocon said the car wasn't really there in the dry, but then when it rained, it just came alive. So they've not gone. I imagine there is a wet setup to a point on there because we knew it was going to rain, but they've not sort of gone all in on that, if you like. So that may just be a line for the press. They may know something that we don't know behind the scenes. I'm sure it'll come out at some point if it is, but that's not something they went out deliberately to do. So they just had the pace today, and that was I think they are this won't be too much of a shock to anybody really, I don't think the surprise package of the weekend in the end. Nobody saw this coming, and if you said you did, you are lying. I've just saw somebody says, well, we can't call the Alpine a tractor anymore, we can call it a boat, so that's something. And I will make the point, I have written it down as a stat, but Ziga's making a point in chat, so I'll give Ziga a shout out. This is the Enstone team's first double podium since the 2013 South Korean Grand Prix. Kimi Räikkönen and Romain Grosjean. So what a performance. I mean, I don't want to put it all on Ollie Oakes, he's only been there a week or whatever. It's been about 3 months now, isn't it? So, but what a job, what a turnaround of that team. And I know it's a one-off, but I still think fantastic performance, big points. And I think they were saying on Sky, they kept banging on about like $50 million that could be worth to Alpine if they stay there. And I look at the championship and I've lost it now, it's gone away. So I look at the championship and then it goes away. I love that. It's my favourite thing about the world. Where are we? So you look at the championship. They're on 49 points. They are only 3 clear of Haas and 5 clear of RB. That battle for 6th is going to be one hell of a fight. So if McLaren do wrap up the constructors, as people think they will, and Verstappen has pretty much done the drivers, that's your battle. Yeah, Ferrari and Red Bull, whatever. But Alpine, Haas and RB in that battle to be... I mean, technically second best in the midfield because Aston have got 5th sewn up, but that's a hell of a fight. So when you look at Haas's form of late, and you look at the pace they've had, that's massive for Alpine. I keep saying massive. I can't put it into any other words. It's absolutely huge. It's a lot of money. And I think if you'd have offered them 6th place, well, on Saturday, they'd have taken it. But if you'd have offered them at the start of the season, they'd probably have taken that. So fantastic. And if they can get on top of this car with the rules staying roughly the same next year, they might be on the up. So they could be a team to keep an eye on, but maybe just getting a bit excited there because it's nice to see. Nice to see. Probably, there was a picture earlier, probably the happiest podium we've had in a long time. I don't think I've seen such a smiley podium in a while, it feels like. So, happy.
Well, yeah, I mean, all 3 drivers have been suffering for the last few months, haven't they? They've been not where they want to be, definitely not where they were in the first half of the season. So, yeah, absolutely take this. I still think... I don't know, actually. I was going to say, I still think 6th is Haas's for the taking, but you just don't know race to race, like where, who's going to pick up the tail end points, which is kind of what Alpine and RB and Haas are doing. So you're right. It is anyone's, and we'll see what they can do from here. We haven't seen a lot from Alpine recently, but all they need to do is keep Haas from gaining 3 points in them, and it's theirs, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's going to be a great battle. If Alpine are resurgent and Haas's pace, this is going to be fantastic, especially if Lawson's delivering the RB as well. And obviously Tsunoda, but I meant Lawson replacing Ricciardo, obviously coming in delivering. That's a heck of a fight. Back to your point on Ocon pulling away, or our point on Ocon pulling away. Rixis says in his super chat, thank you very much, Rixis, for your super chat, that in the podcast, Verstappen said he was ready to stay there in P2. So, is he thinking at that point, Ocon's a bit quick, it's too risky, Norris is well behind me, let's bank these points? Maybe that was going on as well. I did mention that this morning. I thought that's what Max needs to do more of now, more Prost than Senna, I suppose, is what I'm saying. So maybe he was looking to stay in P2, but, he got the restart, good move to take it off Ocon. And AC, thank you very much for your super chat. Says, what position does Max need to secure the World Drivers' Championship in Vegas? Can Leclerc steal P2 from Norris? Is this Checo's last race? Where will Colapinto race in 2025? Who will drive for Sauber in 2025? So that's Q&A sorted later, Stuart. We've got all those to answer from AC. We will come back to that later, AC. Thank you so much for your questions there and for your continued support as always. But anything else on Alpine, Stuart? I feel a little bit bad because, like you say, they just drove their position. They drove their race. They've not gone throwing up the inside. It's not a stunning overtakes. They played the game today and they were heavily rewarded. So it's kind of tough to really say too much.
I will say, I think it's Alpine that we saw some footage from. Like Red Bull, they seem to know their rules because when Norris did that, what we're going to assume, and I need to keep checking the FIA site for this, is a illegal restart reconnaissance lap procedure thing. They did seem to say, stay on the grid. And then when everyone left, they were like, okay, go. The cars in front of you have essentially broken the rules by going, but everyone's going now, as they saw, and very clearly stating it over team radio. So the FIA know, we know the rules, we're going with everyone, but we tried to stay on the grid. So I think they definitely seem to know what they're doing. So that, good strategy, good tactics today, following the rules to make sure they didn't get booked. Hopefully at the end of the race with whatever happens to that. They seem to have good race management, which bodes well. Once they get a good car on them, that means they can manage their races well.
I agree. Some interesting team radio going on there, and we'll get on to the potential penalties in a moment, because we're going to get on to Mercedes now. They were the third best team today, but I have a sneaking suspicion that they won't be staying there. It's all going to hinge here on the difference between a technical directive and a technical regulation here, I think. But George Russell finished P4, Lewis Hamilton in P10. Russell, he got a good start. I think him and Norris were fairly equal off the line at the start, and then in the second phase, George just got enough to get alongside, then took the lead into turn one. Led for quite a while, actually, did George Russell. I thought he might be able to do something today, but kind of all didn't work out. He pitted. He was another one that wanted to stay out. He felt like he should have stayed out. They didn't. What we're trying to say, they made the call to bring him in. He didn't want to. He wanted to stay out and take that risk because he knew that a safety car, a red flag, was going to be possible. And then it came out, and he was pretty. Let's go with miffed on the radio. He wasn't very happy about that. But again, another day that goes his way, doesn't it? So I think Bernie Collins made the point in. I've just read the championship tables are wrong. I'll sort that in a minute, by the way. But Bernie Collins was saying that in the moment, that's the right decision, because you have to play to the conditions effectively. You've got to pit when the conditions say you need to pit, if you know what I mean. So they made the right call, but it just didn't work out to be the right call as the race unfolded. Does that make sense? I don't feel like it does. I feel like I'm having a minor breakdown trying to explain something here.
Yeah. I think it sort of makes sense. It was definitely very, very hard. No, I think it's. But Bernie's right. There's you've got the drivers can feel the track and where it's at, and what's probably needed in terms of tires. The data can show so much, but I think the drivers can have a good call. Some better than others, and I think as we get onto McLaren, I think we go to point out how Norris, I don't think, is very good at that. But I think it was very hard today to know when to do a pit stop, when to get fresh tires, what to do with them. The rain was changing constantly. You weren't sure if things were going to, some people went on to wet. It was just very, very difficult out there, because you could probably feel the track in the moment, but you're not entirely sure where it would be in 2 laps time, 3 laps time, whatever. And, we've spoken about it before, but I think Max really excelled in judging what was going on track today, particularly.
Yeah, I agree. I'm just looking at the chat there. I'm going to start doing these streams. Renz has just said in chat, good race. See you next time. I'm going to do the next race reaction. That's what I'm doing. Good race. See you next week. That's bad race. I might not see you next week. That'd be good fun. Thank you, Renz. That made me smile. I don't know why I just did. I don't know. I don't know what to say. I've got next to nothing in my notes, and I feel a bit crappy for that, because I think George actually drove pretty well today. We'll talk about penalties in a minute. We'll just quickly get to Lewis Hamilton. Off track at turn 12 and across the grass at one point. Really not happy with the car in general. Hasn't been all weekend, to be fair. Said on the radio on lap 20, the car's not drivable, mate. Locking up and bouncing everywhere. Looked awful, bouncing. That's something Alonso complained about a lot, was bouncing. Some question marks over this new surface that was supposed to deal with this that appears to have made things worse, which is interesting. Not happy from Lewis today at all. He really wasn't. And 10th place pretty much, I guess, sucked for him. But actually at the same time, given how bad the car was and the way he was feeling, it's a point at the end of the day. It's not, it's not where he wants to be, understandable. Not where Mercedes want to be, but it is still a point on the board. But the big question really now for Mercedes is, does any of that even matter? I guess, Stuart, if they just wasted their Sunday. Not quite like that. That's a bit harsh. But they are under investigation. George's under investigation for the start infringement as well, isn't he? And then he's also under investigation, as is Lewis Hamilton, for changing tyre pressures on the grid whilst the tyres are still fitted. But what everyone's a bit confused about, and I mean, the confusion around the start infringement is that we've never seen this before. It's unprecedented, as Karun Chandok said, that nobody knows what the penalty could be. Nobody knows who's in the right, who's in the wrong. I think it seems to be that amber light aborted start, you don't go unless you get the green light. So maybe we do know. But this other one is changing tyre pressures while the tyres are fitted to the car. They've got to take the tyres off like McLaren did to adjust the pressures before you put them back on the car. You can't do them when they're on the car. I'm sure you're going to tell me a really great technical reason, Stuart, as to why that is. But it's a technical directive and not a technical regulation. So we're all sort of questioning what this penalty could be. Because if that's a technical regulation and you've broken a technical regulation, that is disqualification, isn't it? But a directive, we don't know.
Yeah. Again, we're sort of floating into the unnecessarily complicated area of F1 where everyone just... Things that get complicated when people are scratching their heads, not entirely knowing what the result is and what... But I think bottom line, they should have known.
Yes.
It's one of those things they should have known. I mean, they asked Russell about it, and Russell was like, "I don't know. I mean, it's not up to him. That side of things. He just lets the team deal with the tires." But yeah, if that's a technical directive and they breached it, they should have known. And whatever the punishment is, again, who knows? Yeah, that's going to be a slam dunk, isn't it? It's the same as speeding in the pit lane. They either did it or they didn't, and they'll be able to tell. Unless they have some incredible reason for it, which I doubt that they can come up with. Yeah, I don't actually know why they have to do that. I should have looked that up, but there was a lot to go through, it turns out. And with the start, I guess with the sort of with the going and the aborted start thing, I guess we can talk about it a little bit now. Norris instigated it, I guess, but I think that's another thing that's sort of managed by the teams, but I don't know how quickly they would have been able to get over to the radio, because I think, and I haven't seen drivers talking about this yet, but my assumption is you see those yellow flashing lights, and I think your instinct is, oh, okay, we're going for another formation lap. Like it just, because that's much more common. And I don't know if, I mean, there was a massive sign in light saying start aborted. We can't argue with that, but I don't know if like maybe you need to have the red lights on in the same way that you have the green lights on for doing another formation. I don't know. It just feels like on instinct the drivers just took off and did another formation lap because I think they just saw the flashing yellows and just went. It's a weird one. I think it could easily be, again, a slam dunk if they didn't follow the correct procedure. It put the whole grid out of sorts because some people stayed behind, some people went with them, some people went late, people got out of order. No one was staying 10 car lengths apart. But then it wasn't a real formation lap. So does that even matter? It was just a mess. And I think perhaps at minimum, I won't disagree with any punishments handed out, but maybe there needs to be something a little bit clearer. Maybe some red lights as well. I don't know. Considering, as we said, it was a bit unprecedented.
It's interesting, though, isn't it? Because sort of, as you said there about drivers maybe not knowing, but then at the same time, half the grid did, if you know what I mean. So like Ocon knew that he shouldn't go and the team knew he shouldn't, and Verstappen said why they go. So it's sort of obviously something, I feel like this is, some of the drivers knew, but I do feel like this is something the team need to be stepping into, because if you're a driver and you've got, you're messing about with your clutch and you keep an eye on what's around you, trying to get in the grid box in the right spot and trying to make sure your start procedure's ready, you're in neutral or whatever, ready to go. You need your team to go, oh, aborted start, do not move, stay where you are. That's all it would have taken. So it's a bit odd to me. But Max Verstappen was pretty quick on the radio. No surprise. Cheats. He didn't say that, but he was pretty quick to spot it. Ocon was told as well. So some drivers knew, some drivers didn't, or they did know, but maybe, as you say, just saw the amber lights and went and just thought it was a normal formation. The thing that I'm trying to work out as a penalty on this one is how harsh do the FIA need to be, because not only did they run an amber light, let's say, not quite a red light, but ran an amber light, they also passed marshals, crane and driver in the runoff area where a driver has already spun and crashed. I know people will laugh at me in chat, Lance Stroll, people don't like him, people think he's rubbish, but another driver could have easily had that same problem, and then we've got a disaster potentially. So I feel like this is something the FIA do need to come down quite hard on. But we have no real precedent for this. All I keep coming back to is, if the red light is on at the end of the pit lane and you leave, you're black flagged. but a red light isn't the same as an amber light. If you go through an amber light at traffic lights, I don't think you'd face any kind of trouble. You go through a red one, you do. So it's not as simple as that. But that's the only thing I can think of. But it's kind of bonkers. On the tyre pressures thing, one thing I did want to say is, and I'm not trying to defend what Mercedes did, if they've broken that technical directive, penalty all day long, done. But I do find it interesting that the FIA stand over them and watch them doing it when they know it's against the rules. I kind of feel like they could have gone, oh no, don't do that. But then I suppose they've got to stay impartial, haven't they? But I do feel like somebody could have gone, oh no, you need to take the wheels off. But there you go. That's just me. I know impartiality in that, I suppose, but.
Yeah, I mean, maybe because they can't stand it forever. I don't know. Yeah, I think they've just got to be like animal documentarians and just watch the lion eat the lamb. To be honest. I will say just one thing, and I know this is on Lance Stroll, and we're not really on Aston Martin yet. But you just reminded me, Lance Stroll went off on a formation lap, and then as another formation lap went around, just stood in the middle of a gravel trap where he just crashed. I was flabbergasted. Why was he not getting off the train? He was just, all it took was one car to do exactly the same thing he did, and he'd be flattened. It just seemed a bizarre thing for him to do. I was going out of my mind because he was. I don't know. I just need to say that because I might forget later. But I was just. I don't know what he was doing.
Yeah, we'll come back to the start line infringement. We'll get to McLaren in a few because we're going to have to talk about it again because there's some other things I wanted to sort of go over. But just on Mercedes, I'd be surprised if their result stays the same. Like I say, technical regulation breach, disqualification. Are they going to go a bit lighter because it is just a technical directive? I mean, George Russell said post-race that they didn't get the pressures in the car anyway because the car felt awful. But then Lewis Hamilton said the car felt awful all weekend. So what can we read into that? So it'll be interesting to see how light or hard they go on this one. But I do feel like any technical infringement should be a proper, if not a disqualification, the next harsh thing. Because it's, I don't know. It's weird. Directives, rules. If you've got a directive, just put it in the regulations. I know it's difficult to put things in regulations mid-season, but they've done it mid-race before, so it's not a problem, is it? So that's all I'm saying on that.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I figured, that's not that race before anyone starts. I'm talking about other things, but So nothing else. Anything on your notes to Mercedes, Stuart? I've not got a lot on Hamilton or Russell. Again, a bit like Alpine, they sort of they're involved in things, but a lot of their race is kind of basically like George Russell P4, maybe Lewis Hamilton P10, perhaps. It all comes down to these penalties. I guess I'll tell you what then, very quickly on Mercedes, sort of in a positive light, did you ever think Russell was on for the win here today, or were you fully still expecting to see a Verstappen or a Norris come through and nick it?
To be honest, that first half, Russell seemed not in control, but, Norris was hassling him, but he wasn't, it never seemed like he was really going to make a move, and we knew the conditions would change and stuff, and there would possibly be safety cars and all kinds of things, but Russell looked pretty confident up front, I must say. And I like, considering what we've seen from other drivers like Ocon in other races and things, there was a chance that Russell could steal this and get his second win. It did look on the table for him. It kind of went away for him, and if taking that extra pit stop over other cars hadn't happened, I in hindsight, Verstappen probably would have breezed past, but I definitely thought Russell could have had it as things stood in that kind of first half of the race. Yeah, for sure.
Surely a podium as well without all of that, you thought.
And very surprising considering where Mercedes have been all weekend. They've been complaining constantly about how, and you could see them on the track, just they didn't seem to have the grip. They were, particularly Hamilton, but Russell as well, twitchy, not seem to be planted particularly. So actually to see him, when he had a decent qualifying and then just to lead the race the way he did, I was surprised, but yeah.
Just waiting to check something in a minute, but I just Nick about, we just sort of touched on this earlier. Nick says Russell definitely had a chance. He also told the team not to box. He knew red flag was coming. He was frustrated on the radio. He made that call. He knew the red flag was on its way, or a safety car was. And this goes back to what I've always said. And I was banging on about this in Canada this year. I think I was saying it last year at a race as well that was a bit like this. When you're saying to a driver, pit for fresh inters and your driver says, no, let's stay out, in these conditions, I think you need to listen to your driver. I know the teams have all the data, but in these conditions, listen to, unless the team come over the radio and say, you know, Perez just put the wets on and gone 13 seconds quicker than the leader, then you just stay on what you're on if that's what you're comfortable. I think just listen to your driver, but that's easy for me to sit here and say that one. So we'll keep an eye out for the penalty on Mercedes and come back to it if anything happens. But we are, please do drop a like, by the way. Nearly 200 likes already on the stream, so if we can get over there already, that'd be fantastic. 1,100 of you here. Please do subscribe if you're new as well. Lots to come this season. Thanks to Alfie, to Kyle, and to 65 Coupe DeVille. Brennermaster, Martin, and to Jane as well for subscribing. Thank you very much. Appreciate your support. Likes and subs always appreciated as always. So let's always appreciate and always. They're the words in that moment. Ferrari. This won't take long. It's been nice to talk about the last couple of weekends, I'll be honest. But Charles Leclerc pitted end of lap 24 for fresh inters as the rain fell harder and with more on the way, which I thought, what are you doing, you weirdos? What a stupid thing to do. Actually, not terrible for him in the end because he ended up P5, which kind of feels like where the pace was today anyway. So I think probably not a terrible result for Leclerc. So I feel like we didn't see an awful lot of him. He was kind of in that little gaggle, like I said, there was Tsunoda and I think Gasly or Ocon, and then there was Verstappen coming up. But Leclerc, a bit like the Alpines, kind of just, apart from that question mark over the strategy from Ferrari, kept it clean and did what he needed to, drove his race and picked up a decent result. Outscored Norris, so maybe could take that second place up in the standings. We will see. It's just the question, when the way they pitted that early as well, I just thought, could we not have just stayed out? But again, like Bernie Collins says, you've got to play to the conditions. As for Carlos Sainz, widened off track at turn 4 on lap 22, rejoined P15 behind Colapinto. And then lap 39, crashed at turn 8. He sort of touched the curb and spun the car around into the wall. Safety car deployed, and then he decided to pull away for some reason and then stopped shortly after. He is under investigation for that, along with what feels like everybody else, for dangerous driving is what they've put it down as. So alleged breach of Article 33.4 of the FIA Formula One sporting regulations for dangerous driving. So that reeks of 3-place grid drop, if ever I've seen it, if he's going to get one. Not quite sure, Stuart, why he chose to continue, but we'll start with Leclerc. What have you got on my Charles? I said my Charles. My Ferrari lads. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, a couple of things actually. I will say, brilliant defending on lap 22 from Verstappen. He was the only one to stop that Verstappen powering through the field. Verstappen tried to go around the outside of turn 1. Leclerc wasn't having it, was aggressive, but pretty fair. Didn't give him more inches than he needed to. I found it very funny. Verstappen was on the radio saying he didn't give me any room on the outside.
Lol.
Which, didn't he? Okay, Max. Yeah, probably the only thing that I side-eyed Max for this whole race, to be honest. Yeah, also held off Max on the inside on turn 7. I thought, yeah, great lap, number 22 from him. Could have been 4th, but made that mistake on lap 46 into turn 4, went a bit wide. Russell squeaked through on the inside. He gave him a good old squeeze, though, into turn 5 to try his best to hang on, but wasn't able to hang on to it and came P5th. But yeah, otherwise, I think you're right. Finished where he should have.
I was talking then, didn't unmute my mic again. I always do that. Yeah, just on the strategy thing as well. I think the issue for me with his with the timing of that stop was that the heavy rain was coming. So it's sort of like, why do that when you might need to come in 2 laps for full wets? It sort of felt like it was a little bit too early to go. But then, to be fair, Russell and Norris weren't too far behind, were they? Leclerc lap 26-ish, Norris 31, Russell 31 as well. So they were only sort of 5 laps behind, weren't they? So it wasn't. But they, at least they hung on to wait to see what the weather was going to do. But that was my big question mark over strategy. But it worked out in the end. I think P5 was probably what he was going to end up with today. But Carlos Sainz, I think he just seemed to be involved in all sorts of drama, didn't he? And there's a spin there at turn 2. Obviously had his crash in was it qualifying? Yeah, qualifying as well. Do you know, Stuart, this weekend?
Yeah.
Sprints confuse me anyway. I have no idea what session we've just watched. I think it was the race. But yeah, no, the crash in the qualifying session, and then having to come back through from the pit lane. So actually was driving quite nicely, and then had that weird spinning crash at turn 8. I fully expect, I think I said this a moment ago, but I fully expect that'll be a penalty of some sort for rejoining. But nice and racy up to that point. I thought he might come through and nick a few points, actually. I think the pace in the Ferrari, that he could have done that, but quite tough to overtake for everybody today, I think, apart from apparently Max Verstappen. But yeah, I saw somebody on Twitter say today was a good advert for DRS. It's a bit harsh, I think.
I mean, it was tough. I don't think we needed DRS. I think it was a tough old race because you got to get traction, you got to position yourself well, you've got to not, slide into someone when making a move. It's the kind of conditions I enjoy. And actually, on a more general point, I was surprised and delighted that we didn't get more collisions from moves. I think most of the moves were fairly clean. We had a little bit of, tires touching and stuff. Most of the sort of action and accidents was sort of self-inflicted. Obviously, Piastri bumped into Lawson, but for the most part, it was pretty clean racing, considering how treacherous it was out there. I think that has to be applauded. But yeah, bad day all around for Sainz in the barrier twice. Didn't get above 13th place at any point, but yeah, he did look a bit more racy at the start before he dropped it. But yeah, I mean, what else can you say? I think starting from the pit lane, I guess with these conditions, anything's on the table, but he didn't make it work today.
Nick says Sainz touched the white line under braking, and that's the number one no in the wet. Absolutely. Karun Chandler was explaining that they've got a special paint that's supposed to be anti-slip, so that's working well.
There's a limit to that, isn't there? It's not.
Yeah. And Free says pictures of F1 cars just hit different in the rain, don't they? They do. There's something about them, especially when you see the water moving underneath them. Like boats. It's yeah. Anyway, that's it for Ferrari. McLaren slipped up today. I feel probably needed, unless there's penalties to come for McLaren. Probably needed a bigger result than that with McLaren slipping up to have a chance at the constructors, but they're still in the mix. And if they can, recreate their pace from Mexico and Kota, then who knows in Vegas and Qatar and Abu Dhabi. And if the drivers' titles wrapped up, then there could be. I was going to say the gloves could be off, but if the gloves weren't off before, then what on earth was going on in Austin and Mexico if that's without the gloves off? Good God. That's a terrifying thought. But I'm not ruling Ferrari out of the constructors, but I'm less confident than I was a week ago, which sucks a little bit. McLaren, Lando Norris, P6 pending, and Oscar Piastri in P8. Norris is part of that gaggle of cars with Russell, Tsunoda and Lawson, I believe, who are under investigation for that start infringement. He finished 4th. I've got a few notes here. Not a bad start initially, but the second phase last start to Russell, touched on that one. Lap 25 asked if he could box to overtake Russell, told they would consider it. Too much traffic. He wanted to pit there because the rain was getting heavier. They told him to stay out. Off at turn 4 on a race restart lap. Obviously pitted shortly before that, which is what frustrated him again, I think. But off track at turn 4, lost a place to Russell down to P5, then wide at the next restart at turn 1, across the runoff and dropped to P7. That was pretty much it. Piastri did let him through on lap 46 to go into P6, which is where he stayed. Couldn't do anything about Leclerc today. He was saying they were too slow on the straights on the radio. Just McLaren weren't on the pace in the wet conditions, which is incredible when you look at where they were in sprint qualifying, that pace that they demonstrated in the sprint race. Yes, Max was coming at them, but they had that largely under control. They were too busy messing about amongst themselves with team orders to have to worry too much about those behind. But the pace was there this weekend for McLaren, then the rain hit and they just were, I mean, I say nowhere, but he got pole position, so maybe not nowhere, but in the race today, it just didn't work. Oscar Piastri, 10-second penalty for causing a collision with Lawson. I didn't see that, so I'll let Stuart talk about that in a minute, because I know he did. Told to let Norris through on lap 46, which he did. Lap 51, front left lock up at turn 1 and turn 12, went wide. Almost lost a place to Tsunoda, but held on. Just crap all round from McLaren today, I suppose. It's my summary there, Stuart. Just not a good week, not a good end to the weekend for what was a weekend that was looking so promising for them. Like I say, I mean, they had the pace in quali. They had enough in the sprint to get the 1-2, and then here we are talking 6th and 8th, and Verstappen wins it and gets his hands pretty much on that trophy now. So today, or this afternoon, couldn't have gone any worse, really, could it? Or it could be about to get worse, but on track.
No, and after qualifying this morning, as I said, they were staring down the barrel of a huge opportunity. We've been saying for probably months now, the driver's title is a possibility, but they're going to need one weekend where they just take a huge chunk of points out of Red Bull to really make it work. And today, they must have been thinking this is our chance to do that, to actually close up and then make the next 3 races a possibility. And it just went the opposite way. And I don't want to make this a big negative fest, but I think the race showed off all of McLaren's, I think, classic weaknesses that we've spoken about. I think they haven't quite got it together in terms of sort of managing a race, being on it, making the right calls at the right time, sort of communicating, I think, necessarily well. I think Norris still makes a few too many mistakes. I know it's difficult out there, but he makes more mistakes than someone like Verstappen does. I think Norris still hasn't convinced me he's that good at calling changeable conditions. Obviously, the classic is Sochi 2021 when he chose not to change onto wet tires, and that lost him the win. I don't think since then he's yet convinced me that he's as good at it as some other people. I think George Russell is very good at it, and obviously Verstappen's very good at it. I think between him and the team, I don't think they've quite nailed that yet. And he wasn't alone in making that pit stop at that time, but I think also he was calling for it even earlier. When I don't know, I think between them they could have maybe figured out that there was more to be gained from not doing that. Again, tricky race. You have to sort of roll the dice to some extent to overcome that. So I think it's just that kind of thing. I think it's like all those things came together and they just weren't able to maximize what was a really they had a great qualifying session, but also in terms of what happened to Red Bull, a lot was handed to them and they just weren't able to maximize. So bad day in the office. On the upside for us as fans, I think this frees Piastri up again. Piastri has been great, to be honest. I think he's been very gracious in how he's handling having to be number 2 for the last few races. I think they don't have to ask him to hand positions over to Norris anymore. You could tell by his body language on track that he'll do it. He's not happy about it, and he'll stay right behind Norris, and he'll stay ahead until he's up. Like he wants to demonstrate that he isn't a number 2 driver. He doesn't want you to forget that he can win races, he can win championships. He's not just going to move over for Norris, and I think he's not going to be asked to anymore. And I think that's going to be fun. And as long as they, papaya rules their way through the next 3 races, I think they can get the constructors. But yeah, drivers is off the table.
You'll be pleased to know the FIA bot is working now.
Oh, is it back?
I'm not. So the summons has come through for the aborted start incident, but also they've just come through on the FIA website. 17:20. That's just now, isn't it? So we're quite a way off from a decision then, if the summons are just coming through.
Yeah, that is weird.
Unless that's a bug somewhere in the on the website, I don't know. But car 22, car 4, we're still waiting for car, what's Lawson? 40? And car 63, aren't we? So it's a bit odd the summons are just coming through, given that happened at the start of the bloody race.
And the summons is for 5:30 local time, so in a minute's time.
Yeah.
I guess they had a lot to deal with. They must have been chatting to Mercedes for a long time about their pressures.
Interesting.
So it's not going to happen in this stream, is it? We're not going to get an answer.
No, which is frustrating because I feel like I guess they need to ask the drivers and find out what was said where, but with all the team radio they've got, all the data they've got, all the camera angles they've got, everything they've got, I can't see why that couldn't have been dealt with in the race. But sometimes they just like to talk to the drivers and not for other incidents for some reason. There you go. Russell's has just come through as well. And car 30, it's Lawson, not 40. Car 30 for Lawson. So, yeah, I mean, what are your thoughts, Stuart? What are you, because we've sort of touched on it, and we said about, half the grid or more than half the grid knew not to go, and then those leaders didn't go or shouldn't have gone and did. They seem reluctant to answer any questions on it in the pen, did the McLaren drivers. So maybe they're just playing it sort of a bit coy here. Don't want to say something that gets you in trouble, obviously. But what are your thoughts? There's got to be some sort of penalty here because, like we say, we've touched it with the Lance Stroll thing, the whole incident. That's a safety issue, and there needs to be some sort of penalty. But part of me thinks 5 seconds maybe because they weren't sure and the confusion that was around maybe seems fair. But then you can't just start giving penalties out because that's the fair penalty. You've got to give the right penalty. But there doesn't seem to be a precedent for this anywhere in the regulations. So should it be 10? Should it be a drive-through? Should it be disqualification? It's who even knows? But I feel like there needs to be something.
It's a very tricky one. I think you're absolutely right. I think having cars go around a track when essentially you've stopped track action, that was supposed to be the message that was communicated was supposed to be don't drive around the track. And that's a safety issue. And you've got cars driving around the track when you've told them not to, and that's a big deal. And while you said earlier, half the teams seem to know not to go around the track. So, everyone should have known. I think perhaps the counterpoint to that is, why didn't the other half of the teams know? Why did the other half of the grid seem to think they could go? And if it is a safety issue like that, if you do want to keep cars off the track because it's unsafe, I feel like everybody should know. No questions asked. There shouldn't be any ambiguity. There shouldn't be teams not. Should we go? Should we not go? What's happening? So I think there probably should be penalties and they probably should be quite strict about it. But I do think there is a communication issue if that's what happened. And if you're trying to keep cars off the track to do a safe recovery in quite treacherous conditions, I think it needs to be completely unambiguous what you want the cars to do. And clearly it's not. So I think whether there's a penalty or not, I think maybe there needs to be some clarity around what it means when the start is aborted, perhaps. Clearly it's not clear enough.
Yeah, or it is clear enough and we can't find it and half the teams need to start reading the rules properly. We'll find out if the FIA are like, look, it says it right here, and we go, oh yeah, maybe they should have read that then, to be fair. But yeah, no, it's a bit of it's such a weird one, and I think it comes down to when you get an abort, say a car stalls on the grid and you get an aborted start, you get a sign, don't you, that will flash up and say extra formation lap, and the drivers go again. We didn't get that this time. We just got the amber lights and said aborted start. So other drivers have switched their engine off and they were going to stay there, and then other teams are like, well, we're going to have to follow them, we can't stay here. But there's a point Dell just made in chat from somebody else. Someone had a good point. It needs to get punished harshly, because if that happens on a last lap restart, you lock in the result.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
there needs to be you need to make sure teams know that they're going to get slammed for that if they try it, because somebody could, and we've been talking the last few weeks about gaming the regulations. You could, in theory.
Yeah, I think it does. I think there may be some convincing to be had that it's not clear enough. And I think there is a reason to believe it might be a bit more lenient than we maybe expect, because if it was crystal clear that they'd gone when they shouldn't have gone, they would have been punished in the race. They would have been disqualified. They would have been given a drive-through, whatever it was. But clearly, they want to talk to the teams and figure out what the hell went wrong. That's my read on it. I think there's some leniency there, perhaps. Otherwise, I think they would have been punished during the race.
kind of like sit them down and say, what do you know? What do you think the rule is, sort of thing. And then, oh, well, then you're in the wrong, so you need to be... I think do you agree there needs to be something now? I keep putting you on the spot, I'm sorry.
Yes, I think so. And I think there needs to be something from both sides. I think the teams need to be punished. I think the FIA needs to, I don't know, clarify something or make the procedure a little bit more crystal clear. I don't know. I think there needs to be something from both sides, because it clearly isn't clear enough.
And if it is, then I'm going to pull out the rules cars. I've just can't remember this happening before. We've had things like this, the start lights failing at it was the Nürburgring in '99, I think it was, something like that. We've had bits like that, but we've not had anything like this before, so it's quite strange. So I'm not making excuses for Liam Lawson and Yuki Tsunoda and Russell and Norris and saying, well, maybe we need a clearer signal, but maybe we need to have aborted start, they flash, and then you go for an extra formation lap. If they stay stationary, amber lights, and you stay where you are, or something like that. Maybe just a clearer, rather than just having to read words, because who knows, these drivers may not be able to read. That might be the defence. Lando Norris going, I can't read. You never know. So just a clearer signal, I don't know, but I don't think disqualification is needed here, but I will be satisfied with nothing less than torture and banishing from Formula One for life. 10 seconds, maybe?
I don't. I mean, I don't. I think I'm going to be surprised whatever happens, because I just have no idea what they're going to do with
Probably
this.
Nothing, to be fair.
But yeah, I think I maybe just use the red lights on the start gantry to be clear going forward, and then I don't know. I mean, I think if they get disqualified, that'll be harsh. And I think I'd have to see replays of the actual aborted start happening. It's interesting what just 4 drivers seem to be called up, because I'm pretty sure not was it the 18 other cars stayed completely still. There seemed to be some kind of, like, some people went straight away, some people went a little bit later, but again, not all cars go straight away. There is a bit of a staggered effect leaving the grid on the formation lap, and then some people stayed for a long time because they were like, we're not meant to go. It's interesting that just those 4 cars were summoned, when I think more cars were just going with it.
Somebody just asked, so Aaron says 10 seconds doesn't affect the result, though. No, question mark. It won't affect the result anyway, unless I'm missing something, because if you give Norris 10 seconds, you've got to give Tsunoda 10 seconds and Lawson 10 seconds, so they'll all drop, but Norris is still going to end up 6th. Russell would drop back if he got 10 seconds. He would drop to... So this is going to come down to how they apply them as well. Who was first? I mean, Norris first, you'd assume, wouldn't you? But do you do his penalty last because he was the first one to do it, or first because he was the first one? People will move. Lawson will drop out of the points. I think Behrman moves into the points. But in terms of, I think Norris would probably end up, depending on how they put them together, still staying 6th. I think, looking at that. Leclerc 6.9 behind Russell, Norris 1.1 back, and then Tsunoda's 10.6 behind. So... And then Tsunoda would have 10 seconds added on as well. So I'm not sure it's going to make a huge difference to Norris's race either way. But I'm not saying it should be 10, and it wasn't because the race result isn't affected, British bias. It was just because I thought 10 would be about where we'd be when you said, well, do you know what? Let's not open that can of worms. It has been 10 at times this season. Sometimes it's 5 when it suits. Sometimes it's 10 when it suits. Who knows anymore? Or if you're in Verstappen's case in Mexico, a minute. Or it felt like. What do you think in chat? Let us know. I mean, what do you... We don't know, and we are all guessing here because there is no precedent. What do you think the penalty should be, or what do you think it will be? Let us know. I'll keep an eye on chat while we're scrolling through. But have you got anything on the actual racing itself on McLaren, Stuart? Because I've got those little bits that I read earlier. And I thought, to be fair, you did talk about the... do I dare say the bottling of the championship with their strategy calls? I mean, how many points have McLaren cost both their drivers this season with some of their decision making. But in terms of the Drivers' Championship, I think Jonty said earlier, there's an argument for about 50 points for Norris that they've cost him if they'd have swapped positions here and done this strategy differently. And I know it's all ifs and buts and ifs and buts and all that business, but there's a lot of points were cost, and I tend to agree with you on the strategy side of things, but I'm just trying to think. I think Oscar Piastri made a couple of mistakes today, put Lawson into a spin. That's a slam dunk penalty. That was what I was going to ask you. What was the Lawson one? I missed it.
Yeah, Lawson went up the inside. Sorry, Piastri went up the inside of Lawson into turn 1 and just caught his rear tire and spun him round. Got a 10-second penalty there. Went and apologised for him during the red flag, which I thought was good of him. Piastri's a good lad. I think I've everything about him. I like I like the way he talks. I like he seems sound mind. He's tough on track, but not out unfair. He doesn't seem to have. He hasn't riled me up with crazy antics yet. He's been very gracious in having to just take that number 2 role temporarily for McLaren to help Norris in the Drivers' Championship. Swap positions in the sprint and in the race this weekend. I think for the last time. I don't think we're going to see that again. He's great. I can't wait to see him next season as well with just having the whole season of hopefully a competitive car and see what you can do with it. He made an error. He knew he made an error. He held his hands up and got the 10-second penalty for it. We seem to be back to 10-second penalties. I don't care as long as it's consistent. I think at the start of the season we were agreeing that maybe 10 seconds was doing a better job at getting drivers not to play the tactical game of being a bit bullying on track and just taking the 5 seconds because you can pull away from it. Other than that, I think we said everything about McLaren, didn't we? They sort of bottled a lot of it, didn't they?
Yeah.
Took a good opportunity and threw it away.
A few saying grid drop for the next race. Some saying a drive-through. I did see somebody ask what that would be. I think that would be about 20 seconds usually in lieu of a drive-through. They tend to, don't they? Greybag was asking that one. But a few people... I mean, very harsh. I've seen hung, drawn, and quartered by somebody here. So I think I'm kind of, sometimes I look at the chat and go, you guys should be the stewards. Tonight is one of those nights where they really should not be the stewards. If we're talking about hang, drawing, and quartering people. There you go. Thank you to Brad. Says penalty should be car number. Max gets 1 second. Thank you very much for your super chat. Andreas, thank you very much for your super chat too. Says enjoying all the content, Sean. Thank you very much, Andreas. I appreciate that massively. But we'll move on from McLaren. We may come back to this if we get any decision tonight, although I'm not very hopeful given that they're only just with the stewards. So they've got to talk to 4 drivers, all the team personnel that are going to go with them, so their representatives, that's 8 people at least they've got to talk to. Then they've got to deliberate. Then they've got to stop Johnny Herbert talking, which is oh boy. So they could be a while. So keep an eye on your socials tonight if you want the answer to that one, I suspect. But if it comes in during the stream, we will let you know. Let's quickly fly through the final point scoring team today. RB, as it stands, final point scoring team today, RB. Yuki Tsunoda 7th, Liam Lawson 9th. Again, struggling with the notes here because they were involved with this. We've kind of already talked about some of them, like Lawson getting pitched around by Ocon. Lawson did have a go at his teammate into turn 1 at the start, which I thought was ballsy, but he got a bit, as Karun Chandok put it, greedy. There's a picture of it there, and had to back out a little bit, and that cost him the position to Leclerc, so compromised his race there. But I feel like Liam Lawson was involved in several incidents. He was making mistakes. He was getting pitched into spins, yet he still ended up 9th. So where could he have been is, I guess, my question there. But also on Yuki Tsunoda, I've written here, race of 2 halves. It felt a little bit light for me. Really pacey early on. I won't say matching the leaders, but on good pace to keep himself relatively comfortable. And then sort of in that second phase of the race, he seemed to lose a bit of speed and was kind of the cork in the bottle of Piastri and Lawson and Hamilton and Perez before they started squabbling again. So sort of the pace was there early doors, and I thought this could be quite a special day for Yuki. Then he moved to the wets. Then he came back off the wets and onto the inters, I think probably under the red flag, unless I'm missing something. And then his pace kind of disappeared a little bit. So I'm happy for Yuki if he keeps his P7, and that may not happen, but with him being in P7, I think his performance this week at 3rd place on the grid, for goodness sake, Stuart. I mean, come on. That's a fantastic lap in those conditions. Lawson as well, great driving. this morning, and then not quite so good this afternoon, but still got P9. But I say race of two halves. I don't think you can divide that race into half, can you? But you know what I mean. I think pace was there, then it wasn't, and that's kind of a shame, but still big points. The problem for RB is it's a decent result, or a very good result, but one of their rivals got a double podium. So it's kind of like, yay, oh no. That's my summary of RB. Did you like that?
It's a good summary, yeah. And on a normal day, I think they would have taken this. It's interesting. You look at Tsunoda's on the lap chart. He kind of had a race. I think they both did a little bit. He had a race very similar to the Alpines in that he just held position, and position changed just around the pit stops. And unlike the Alpines, he lost positions in the pit stops because he took a pit stop. But yeah, he was holding third up to the pit stops, and then after all the red flag shenanigans, he held 8th to the flag, and obviously got promoted because of Piastri. So I guess you could say he just drove his race. He's sort of more lonely than other people, I think. Both of them, I think, watching them driving like they want Red Bull to notice them. Coming out of qualifying this morning, it was very much like Colapinto in the wall, the other RB drivers having a phenomenal session. I mean, like, why are you flirting with Colapinto when we're here delivering in this slightly dodgy car you've given us? I think Lawson in particular during the race, he's very much like, I want that Red Bull seat. Look at this Perez guy. He's rubbish. I'm going to elbow him off the track. I think they did the best they could with the car they had. They had a great qualifying, and they kind of made it work as well as they could. Strategy let them down a bit. Maybe they could have been a bit further up if they had held on through to the red flag period that they didn't know was going to happen. Grabbed a couple of points. Fairly clean day, I'd say. Lawson was a bit more scrappy and involved with things. Held off a Red Bull and a Mercedes through quite a long period of the end of the race. I think that was pretty good from him. He's still shining, I think. But yeah, I think this is a good day in the office for RB. You just have to ignore the fact that their competition just took home 400 points.
Yeah, no, I agree. It is strange, isn't it? You got Tsunoda P3, drove well today. Lawson, he's impressed since he's come in, and they're like, right then, two cracking drivers potentially here, haven't we? So what should we do? Should we get Colapinto? Although the latest rumours seem to be that the conversation is to agree a fee with Williams to release Sainz and let them keep Colapinto. But my response to that, if that rumour, and it is any rumour, is true, and I excuse my language, but I'm going to say it, why the fuck didn't you just do that in the first place?
Quite.
Why are you paying a fee for a driver who was available at the end of the season? Perez wasn't delivering when Carlos Sainz signed for Williams. He's not been delivering since, I think, China. So why are you potentially? So I'm not convinced that's true, Stuart, is my point there. I think if you're negotiating a fee for releasing Carlos Sainz, one, James Vowles is probably going to go no, and two, because the excitement at Williams when he signed, and two, if they wanted him that badly, they should have just signed him when they had the opportunity. Very, very strange. We've been banging that drum all season, haven't we, Stuart? Why aren't you just signing Sainz? He's there, he's available, he was one of your juniors. What a fairy tale story for him. He's gone off to Renault, gone off to McLaren, raced at Toro Rosso. He's now at Ferrari, and he finally gets his chance at Red Bull. I mean, come on, ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous.
To be fair and balanced,
go on then.
According to James Vowles, Christian Horner was only there to try the new coffee machine. So everything else is rumour.
Yes, quite. There is a comment in chat from somebody referring to people as scum. I'm not going to read the comment. I will say to your general point, you are right in one point and completely wrong in the other. And if you use language like that, then I will just ban you because there's just no need for it. We're not that kind of place, mate. So jog on. That's the end of that one. So anything, I think we'll just move on from RB because I feel like we're going to waffle because I kind of feel it's a weird reaction the way, Stuart. A lot happened. Didn't really know a lot of what was going on around the sort of the top 10 because it was sort of chaos everywhere and trying to keep up with everything, but also we don't actually know if this is the bloody result. So I kind of feel like it feels like a limbo a little bit. So we will move on to Haas very quickly. Ollie Behrman today, he finished 12th. Hulkenberg was disqualified. We'll get into that in just a moment. But Behrman, how can I sort of... I feel a bit for him today, actually. He's never driven an F1 car in the wet, and he got thrown into conditions like this weekend at relatively short notice, bearing that in mind as well. And I feel just a little bit sorry for him, but at the same time, he didn't really deliver today. 10-second time penalty for causing a collision with Colapinto, which I thought was a bit of an odd one in a way, because he hit the rear of the Williams and spun himself, but not Colapinto. But then, I can't remember who it was in the PF1 chat, said that... how did they word it? It was something along the lines of, in some ways, it's nice to see that punished because we don't always have to have consequences for bad driving, which is what that is, running into the back of another driver. So that's the counterpoint to that. But at the same time, I kind of feel a bit like no harm, no foul. But I know that the stewards keep saying they don't do it on consequences. So if Colapinto goes round or it's damaged his car, penalty all day long. But at the same time, you've got to look at that counterpoint. It's a fair point as well. Lots of turn 12 and went wide. Sainz slipped through. Then lap 19, turn 4, nice move past Hamilton for P14, but then lost it on lap 36 behind Sainz and spun, tapped the wall but rejoined. Lap 38, really struggling again as he locked up and went straight on at turn 4. Just involved in so many accidents and incidents today, Behrman, but to be fair to him, still beat Bottas, Alonso and Zhou. So not a disastrous day, but not great today. And again, he could, with all these penalties when they shake out, could end up in the points here, depending on what they go with. If they disqualify both the Mercedes, for example, he moves to P10. If Norris, Tsunoda and Lawson all get penalised, he could move up another place. So actually, it might turn out from being pretty disappointing and a shame for Ollie Behrman to, actually, mate, not bad at all. As for Nico Hulkenberg, first black flag in F1 since Canada 2007. If you're interested, I know some people like their stats there. He was given a black flag after rejoining, after receiving assistance. There's a picture on screen there. Marshall's lifted the front of the car and pushed him back, and then he rejoined. So unfortunately, it is an absolute slam dunk penalty, which I've seen a few people sharing some comparisons, and fair dues, but I'm going to just find the... I'm not getting into it. Let me just find this...
I know.
Yeah. I'm just going to go find the decision document. So breach of Article 53.2 of the sporting regulations, disqualified from the race. That's what a black flag means. The stewards heard from the driver 27, Nico Hulkenberg, and the team representative, and reviewed the video evidence. Brilliant. This is the line. Car 27 left the track at turn 1 and received outside assistance before the car continued. That's it. So that's how slam dunk that penalty is. One line effectively from the FIA. All the other stuff is just the usual appeal, evidence, filler. It's one line. Car 27 left the track at turn 1, received outside assistance before the car continued. It's a penalty all day long, isn't it, Stuart? So shame, because Haas have had some really good races lately. And I was hoping for more this weekend, but just nothing as it stands to show for it. Could change, but frustrating day at the office for both drivers. I hate saying day at the office because they're not offices, they're race cars. If that was an office, I'd be in one more often, that's for sure.
Yes. Yeah, not much to say on Hulkenberg. Fair cop, really. Yeah, he was having a decent enough race. I think he got himself up to 10th at one point before all the pit stopping things. Very unfortunate he happened to come to a stop after his spin on like an uneven piece of track that beached him. Like, what are the odds? It was all tarmac. It was all like tarmac runoff area, and it just happened to be on a bit of a lip of something, and had his plank touching the floor. Oops. But yeah, fair cop. I could see why they chanced it. I could see they were like, just keep going round, and we'll see what the FIA say. But yeah. And I do feel for Behrman a lot, actually. I think, considering how Haas did as a whole this weekend, you can't... I think he did okay, I guess. Quite a few mistakes, a little bit argy-bargy, but it was one of those days. It was a very, very difficult day to go racing, and then at the very least he brought it home, which sometimes means points. He kept it going. He had a few offs. I don't think his stock has gone down too much. I think after quite a good run for Haas, we kind of thought, oh, if they keep this up, sixth is easily in the bag for them. They're just bringing home points every weekend. Again, I think sort of it was a microcosm of the thing McLaren are going through. McLaren went through several races of just like taking chunks of points out of everyone. And if we look at this as sort of a midfield scale, that's what Haas were kind of doing and just dropped it today. Unfortunately, I think they'll come back strong, but it was just a tough day for them. And Behrman did have the honour of overtaking Hamilton on track. In quite a kind of bolshy side by side little move, squeezed him, got past. I think that was quite impressive. I know Hamilton was having a terrible day, but that's not nothing. So I'll give him that at the very least.
Yeah, and just to confirm to a couple of people in chat, I'm not criticising him. I'm not judging him on that performance. It's not going to change anything. He's got a seat next year, and he's still very young, so he's got plenty of years in him. I'm making the point that I feel a bit sorry for him because he's been thrown in at the deep end, and the conditions couldn't have been much worse, and he's kind of done the best with it, but could still come out of it with a point. So it's not a judgment on his part. He made mistakes. It was always going to happen. More experienced drivers than Ollie Behrman were making mistakes today. His teammate was black flagged for rejoining, but and he's very experienced as Nico Hulkenberg. But I agree with you, by the way, on the chancing it. Maybe sort of, just keep going. Maybe the FIA won't notice they've got enough going on. I'm sure that's not what they said, but I think you go for it and then you wait for the decision. You don't just go, oh, I can't go anywhere now because I'm going to get disqualified, because the FIA may say, oh no, that would have been fine, and then you look an arse. So you've got to try, haven't you? So I agree with that. But yeah, no judgment on Ollie Behrman at all. Just that it wasn't I suppose it's a judgment in a way. It wasn't a great day, but it could still get better for him. So there we go. I hate having to clarify every word.
Good practice, I guess.
Yeah.
Like he's not it's not his first full season in F1. He gets a chance to do a weird wet race to prepare him for when he does have that seat properly. So, maybe look at it that way.
Hey, Stuart.
Hey up.
Not last and not least, Sauber. It's a miracle.
Oh. Who's the best in chat that loves Sauber? Where are they?
Pascal, yeah, where are you, Pascal? Bottas P13, Zhou P15. Yes, 5 cars retired. Yeah, Zhou is still last, but Bottas P13. That's given recent form, and by recent form I mean basically the last year. That's pretty much a win for them. I would say P13, even if it is just basically almost last. But a really odd race I found. Bottas sort of qualified really well, up in 11th place, and then just sort of straight to the back for some reason, just no pace at all early on. I don't know what the sound effect was for. And then Zhou sort of was 20 seconds-ish clear of Fernando Alonso at one point, and somehow ends at 1.6 behind him, and so the pace wasn't there, and it wasn't a great drive from either driver. But one of the key things that you're going to hear a lot between now and the end of the stream is at least they got it to the end. So if we do get a load of penalties ahead of them, massive penalties and disqualifications, they might pick up a point. So in these kinds of races where you've got the uncertainty, the crazy conditions, the possibility of penalties, you just need to get your car to the end. It doesn't matter how slowly you get there, get it to the end, and you might get a surprise and some decent results. So I don't think it was bad from Sauber today. I'm going to read their quotes, but I'm not going to get overly excited about the fact it's nice to talk about them before we go to Q&A. So we've got a couple more teams to get through yet. Mr. Bottas says it was great to reach Q2, and I reckon Q3 could have been possible if it weren't for the red flags. We tried everything we could in what was a very unique race. Love it. With tough changeable conditions and lots of restarts, including red flag. Our biggest issue was tyre warm-up, hence, I suppose, dropping down at the start, which meant we fell back during the first few laps. He does say that after each restart. Once the tyres were at temperature, though, we were better, but still not enough to fight with the cars ahead. A weaker performance than I expected, but we gave it our all. And Zhou Guanyu says this weekend was quite challenging. Oh, PR. With the schedule reshuffled and qualifying taking place on Sunday morning, blah, blah, blah. We don't need to know that. Morning session felt a bit more solid, but when the red flag came out, conditions worsened just when it mattered most. I had to start my final 2 laps in heavy spray with limited visibility. Why are we talking qualifying? Let's just take his qualifying quotes out of that. Oh, no, there we go. Today's race was not easy. Because qualifying was today, so it's a double press release, isn't it? Yeah, there we go. Sorry. I can't do this. F1 on a sprint weekend as well, when I'm confused enough to Today's race was not easy. In each stint and after every safety car, it took 10 to 15 laps to get the tyres into the right window. By then, the race had already slipped away from us. The lack of grip and the tough conditions made it a real challenge. Still, it's good to close out the triple header, and now we need to use this time before Vegas to understand what we need to do to be back in the mix. In my head, I read that line as thank God this triple header's over. Only 3 more to go, and then it's next season. I'm not going to be here, and I can go and do something far more racy and exciting. I don't know. That just read as a bit of a. From Joe there, but yeah, Sauber there. Pascal says, hey Pascal, satisfied with Sauber overall this weekend, SQ2 and Q2. There will be upgrades at Vegas. What a great day of racing, qualifying and the race. Thank you so much, Pascal, for your support, and I'm glad that you're happy with your team's performance today. But and sorry, I guess sorry I can't get more excited for it. I suppose I apologise, but better than some other races and race weekends, I suppose, Stuart.
Yeah. I mean, I think you got the main points there. Brought both cars home in very difficult conditions. Good qualifying from Bottas. I'll give him that. He could set himself up for a potentially a good race. Didn't quite work out. Lost a lot of points on lap 1. But, they sort of position themselves places. They just don't have the race pace to see them through. And they need points to come anywhere but last, and I don't think they're going to have an Alpine moment the rest of the season. But I'm happy to eat my words if they do. We're going to see changes from this team. But yeah, not particularly exciting from them, but I think they can be happy. Like if I mean, let's not forget 15 cars came home, which possibly might be more than finished qualifying. So it could have been worse. It was harem scarum out there. And if they just happily tootled around, not getting into any trouble, and cars had kept going off track, they might have lucked into some points, or at least like an 11th and 12th, and that would have been good for them. So yeah, they're doing what they can, I think, is the best you can say.
Here's the final line on Sauber. To a Yinka says, "Say what you want about Joe, he sure brings them home." That's the line, I suppose, to finish on. And we've still got 2 more teams. So the penultimate team is Aston Martin. Fernando Alonso off at turn 12 on the restart lap, rejoined last. Lap 66 said his back was hurting due to the bouncing, but would finish the race. For the mechanics, as they did a great job fixing the car. Really nice message actually over the team radio, I'm sure, for the team to hear. Not that he's in pain, but that he's willing to finish the race for them, given their hard work, acknowledging that. He had a few other offs as well, Fernando, but Ted gave him some kind of weird title, I can't remember what he called it. Basically, performance of the day that doesn't matter, or something like that. Closing that gap from about 20 seconds from Joe to get back into P14, so it's something. But he says, all in all, it was a tough day today. We had to change some components after the race, the crashing quali, which meant the car was a little bit slower. We also had brake issues after the restart, so that's not helping. The car was really bouncing in the second half of the race. In other circumstances, I would have stopped, but the mechanics did such a good job to get the car ready after the crash, so I finished the race for them. The triple header has not been easy for us. With another one coming, we need to regroup and find some more performance. And Lance Stroll says, I've been a complete and total tit today. He doesn't say that, but that's my summary of Lance Stroll's race. Sorry, Lance Stroll fans, but it's true. It was a really strange one. It felt like a brake failure because as soon as I touched the brakes, it locked the rear axle and I was a passenger. I was stuck in the gravel and my race was done. The reason the reason I said that about Lance Stroll is because fine if there's an issue, anyone can lock their rear brakes, right? It can happen in any condition, but in the wet especially. And he's gone round. What I question was why he, Lance Stroll, who's been driving in Formula One since 2017 and done lots of junior racing, felt that driving into the gravel was the way to go. That's the bit I don't get. That's why I said what I said.
Thank you. And I watched the onboard and he spun onto the tarmac, could have kicked the car around. It was wet enough, just drove of his own volition into the wet tarmac and got immediately beached. It was just, and then stood in the path of oncoming cars, or just stood in the middle of what was a crash zone. Tit is the right word. Considering the efforts his team have put into making sure he had a car that was all the right bits in the right places in the short window they had before come on. Come on, Lance. Terrible day in the office for you. There's not much more you can say about him. Who knows what kind of race he might have had, but it maybe I'm glad he didn't get to race. I feel for Alonso as someone who also has a bad back. Him and the second oldest driver on the grid both were suffering over the bumps, weren't they?
Yeah.
When that message came through that like he's really hurting, but he's going to finish for the mechanics because he owes them for all the work they did. That was lovely, but I was screaming at the TV. Just stop. Please just stop. You're like 14th. It doesn't matter. Just go home. It's fine. You did the best you could. I did feel for him. Again, a bad day, a bad weekend for Aston Martin. I can only feel for the mechanics who put in a lot of work today for this weekend for not much reward. But still, they go racing. Alonso, I guess, never gives up. He wasn't able to do very much today. At all. He suffered a little bit because he also pitted with the virtual safety car pitters, which ultimately cost places rather than gain places. So again, he might have been a little bit higher up had he not done that. But considering he was 14th at the end, I mean, how much further up would he have been really? Yeah. What more could you say? Bad day in the office. Stroll particularly. I just can't.
If you picked up, I don't know if sorry if you picked up any of the audio, by the way, on the stream there. I tried to mute it, make sure I didn't in case I get into trouble. But I was just watching it back. John sent me a clip of him, just like you said, driving into the gravel, and then his engineer says something along the lines of, "Can you bring it back to the pits?" And he went, "No, I'm beached. It's like, I mean, half a story there, Lance. No, I thought, concrete or gravel? Do I want to go on this tarmac or should I? I've got to go in this wet gravel in my low-riding F1 car. Oh no, I'm beached. Never mind. Not Lance's finest hour. But
and without that, we wouldn't have had all this start procedure nonsense.
Yeah, Lance, you've got me sat here having to refresh the bloody FIA page. God, he's so selfish. No, it's the thing is, it's like if he's locked his rear brakes and he spun into the gravel and beached it, I wouldn't be critical of him. It can happen. It's just that really weird moment. I'm sort of, why? I'm with you. I just can't. That is the line. I just can't. I can't take it. We're done with Lance Stroll today. Anyway, final team today, last and very much least, I'm afraid, is Williams. So first of all, Alex Albon did not start the race. Williams said in a statement, unfortunately, after assessing the extensive damage sustained to Alex Albon's car, the required repairs could not be completed in the short window of time between qualifying the race. The team is therefore forced to withdraw Alex's car for the remainder of the Grand Prix. So that's following his big crash in qualifying. We did say in the qualifying watch on stream, didn't we, that we thought that he'd be lucky to start pit lane at best. Frustrating there for Alex Albon, but team did their best. I know James Vowles has said they've now got a proper race against time to get the spare parts ready for Vegas. So a tough couple of weeks coming up in this weird, ridiculous, pointless gap we have. Again, let's do 3 races in the Americas and then let's have 3 weeks off before we go racing in the Americas. You could have doubled them up rather. But anyway, let's not get into that because I will go off on about the calendar again. So they've got quite a lot of work to do. As for Franco Colapinto, he's ensured they have even more work to do. Okay at the start. He did get pinched on the run to turn 1 and had where's that? They're the wrong notes. They're the notes for Sonoda from Mexico. Why are they there?
That's so wrong. 2 accounts.
Weird. Huge crash under the safety car in lap 32 at turn 13, 14, red flag. Just lost it as he accelerated. I can't remember what happened to Colapinto. Stuart, help me. I've got Albon's notes from Mexico here for some reason and not Colapinto. I've copy and pasted the wrong thing somewhere.
Not too much happened. He had that devastating accident where Behrman rear-ended him on lap 6. Seeing as you don't have notes, I'll just remind you that's sarcastic. He carried on fine and Behrman spun around. Did overtake Hamilton for P12 on lap 12 around 1 and 2. The crowd went wild. If you don't remember that, that was pretty exciting. I will say, on a side note, the Argentinian crowd, phenomenal this weekend. They really came out for Franco. Really love seeing that. they waited in the rain for quite a few disappointments, I will say, this weekend. But more power to them. And just crashed under the safety car, lap 31. A little bit too much traction when he hit a puddle at turn 13. And then lost it. Unfortunately, Williams. Big dent in the bank balance this weekend, I will say. And considering, I think, the reason for subbing out, I've already forgotten his name. He's so far gone. Old Logan Sargent, for his crash bills was one of the reasons they were swapping him out. Not a good weekend for them on that front. A lot of damage. And going back to Sauber, that's the kind of thing that they managed to avoid, was bringing a horrible damage bill with them out of this weekend on top of their positions. At least they finished and kept the cars pretty much intact. Awful weekend for Williams. I feel bad watching that mechanic hold his head in his hands when Colapinto crashed, because I don't know if they've got any sleep this weekend. They all arrived at 4:00 this morning on the track, and then they spent all morning repairing cars. Tough one for them.
Also worth, I don't know if you meant this in your point as well, also worth bearing in mind, not only did they have the crash damage from the weekend, they've also dropped a place in constructors.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah,
so a double whammy there. Alpine.
They could have been Alpine. It could have been them just as easily.
Yeah.
And terrible. Real shame for them. But they look good with that yellow flash on the back, I will say. So
they do.
But, swings and roundabouts.
And that's all that matters at the end of the day. If the wheel's hanging off, it's fine, so long as the engine cover looks cool. Tyler says he was just trying to catch up to the queue after a pit stop and just drove too fast. I didn't see the build-up to that. I just saw the aftermath, and Crofty was like, well, that will be a red flag. And I was like, yes, Crofty, well done. And then they spent about 3 hours trying to debate. It was just where Alonso crashed into. Or was it Webber? It's like, it was both. Keep up. We were talking about all this yesterday in the 2.5-hour live stream I was doing. That's all the teams. So, driver of the day. Oh no, what? What have I missed?
No, just what? No. Just one thing on Williams.
Go on.
You probably don't have much of an answer to this, either of us, but I found it weird. They left Albon's slot open and included him on the timing tower as well, even though he hadn't started the race. And as far as I understood, like, as soon as Williams officially withdrew him, his grid slot was up for grabs. So I found that confusing. It was very weird seeing Albon on the timing tower as the race started. That's it. That's all I got.
I can't remember. There's something to do. I think they've got a window they have to let the FIA know within, and if it's after that, then your grid slot's left empty. I may have just made that up.
I didn't have time to check.
I have just had a notification let me know my pre-order for Farming Simulator 25 has gone through, so that did get me excited there. Loser. I'm aware and I don't care. It's chill. I am going to have a look in a bit and see if I can come. And I probably won't. I'll forget as soon as I say driver of the day. Let us know, chat. One surname. Who are you going for? Look. I am biased, of course, but also I have eyes, so I have to go with Max Verstappen. I'm saying it first because I've got the cop-out one out of the way then. It's Verstappen for me. He's the one I voted for, so I'm going to go with Max. Do you agree, Stuart? And I mean, there are plenty of counter arguments to make with other drivers, because there were some cracking drives out there today.
Yeah, they were. For some reason, when you said you were biased, I thought you were going to give it to Leclerc, and I was like, "How are you going to justify this?" I was going to give it to Verstappen. I was going to make it 3 races in a row where I gave it to the winner, but I mean, he was outstanding today. I'm going to use my vote just to highlight Esteban Ocon. I think he had a great race. I think he was handed. Well, no, he earned his grid slot, but essentially, they were. He started the race with a great opportunity and held it. At one point was pulling away from Verstappen, which you can't sniff at. Kept it on the track. Great strategy, and contributed to what was an incredible set of points for this. I mean, you can't ignore Gasly either, really. Came from 13th. But yeah, I'm going to give it to Ocon for a great drive in a really struggling team. Like, he had an opportunity and he took it.
Yeah, I think any of the top three are a fair shout. I think very difficult not to say Max, but also Ocon cracking, Gasly cracking, like you say. So let's have a look at what you guys are saying then. So Dory says it's Verstappen. Nick says Verstappen. John says Verstappen. David says Verstappen. There's a pattern here. Pascal says Ocon and Gasly. Ruby says Hamilton. Moray says Tsunoda. Kaori says I can't stand him, but it's Max hands down. Fill in the blank says Max and Esteban. Abhinav says, it has to be Max. I don't love to say it. Dominic says Lance Stroll. Just for winding me and Stuart up. Aaron says Max 100%. Dominic says George the underrated pick. I read that wrong. Sorry, Dominic. Dominic did not say that. Underrated pick is what he said. Sorry. Sorry, Dominic. Getting you in trouble there. Ocon and Gasly made their team a lot of money in this race, says Freeze. Good point. I did see somebody say, unironically, so Sainz Cavern says, ironically, Checo for doing all that racing and still not getting any points. Fair enough. Overtaking the day was also on Hamilton and Alonso in corner one. No Google, not going to give you my name, go fish, says driver of the day is whoever designed Interlagos. Amen. Ruby says Yuki after Lewis. Lee says Max, no question. Kieran says Verstappen despite a great Ocon race. Neelish says Gasly. Driver of the day includes quality as well. Good shout, Maury. Actually, that's a good point. Pancon says those fastest laps when he didn't need to were ruthless. Ocon brilliant too. Kevin Magnussen, driver of the weekend for managing not to spin a single time. Great point. Although, if it's true, what's wrong? He's been doing worse than spinning, to be fair, at home. So, get well soon, K-Mag. Max drive makes the other drivers shout GP2 engine, says William. Paint 2D says Gasly for me. Emma Harati says Max. Diallo says Max, clearly winner. Scaife says a quiet shout for George. He didn't really put a foot wrong. Sorry, getting the reaction to me getting that wrong when it was pick. I can't believe it, I vote for Verstappen, says Vesk. And one more, FOST driver says Gasly. There you go. Can't disagree with most of those picks there. Picks. If you have any questions, please do pop them in chat. We'll answer a few. We are nearly at the 2-hour mark already, so it won't be too much longer. But any questions, if we've missed anything you want us to talk about, we can go over that. But obviously, always reminding you this is a reaction, not a review. I don't do race reviews because they're pointless on YouTube, because why would you watch me talk about a race review for 20 minutes in a video only to then go and watch the 5-minute highlights on F1? It's pointless. Anyway, I don't know why I needed to tell you all that. I just felt like I had to. There we go. Sorry, Ruby. That's not my opinion of George Russell. I just genuinely read it wrong. What do you guys make of Lando's comment, says Diallo? You take a gamble and it paid off for them. It's not talent, it's just luck. My response to that is Miami. And I said it earlier, I'm not defending him, but I feel like a lot of what was said afterwards was, I've probably just lost the title today. I'm pissed off. I'm not going to be particularly happy in this interview. And he's just said things. I think he'll probably, if he speaks to Max, he probably wouldn't ever say that. Probably a kind of a, oh, you got lucky today, didn't you, mate? That kind of thing. But I don't think that. But at the end of the day, as Max says, you make your own luck. This time it went against Lando and went for Max. Another weekend it goes against Max and goes for Lando. Lando should be old enough and mature enough and experienced enough of racing driving now to know that. So not a good look, but I can sort of understand his frustration, to be honest, Stuart. It's a bit cheeky, but I don't think it warrants the inevitable kickoff on social media it will create to get us to Las Vegas. But then what does?
Yeah, probably not a wise thing to say if you don't want to start any controversy. I get it. You say things when you're angry. I do think, again, I don't remember like his. I think I did see the interview, but I don't remember what he said after all of it. So just that quote in isolation, I do think I would say incorrect. I think it was a calculated risk. There's always going to be a bit of a roll of the dice with conditions like this about when the best time to pit or not pit is. But also the pace. You can't argue with the pace of Verstappen today. It's not. He didn't just like roll a dice and got gifted the win. He came from 17th and pushed his way to the front. I think he would have done that either way, to be honest. So yeah, I think just a little bit annoyed, but I would disagree that today was a gamble that paid off.
I think it would have been harder for Max without the red flag and the safety car and the timing of that. But as we said earlier in the stream, for anyone who's coming in late, and we agreed on earlier, the pace, as you say, Stuart, was there. He got himself up into P10 by turn 1, lap 2. He's in the mix at that point. He's getting past cars in clear air. He's clearly the fastest driver out there in those conditions. He would have been in the battle for the win, at worst a podium today, whatever was going to happen. So, it's not like he was, trundling around in 11th and then got a lucky red flag. Or thinking, and I don't mean this with any shade at all, but thinking Gasly, for example, is the first one that springs to mind. Monza 2020. Where he just didn't pit, and then the red flag came out and he could change tyres, and Hamilton then had that penalty, didn't he, for entering the pit lane when he shouldn't have done, and that kind of led towards that win. That's not the same thing. Gasly probably didn't have the outright pace to win that day without things going wrong, whereas Max today, I think, did have the pace. Again, no shade on Gasly. You can argue
Gasly today, to be honest.
Yeah.
Gasly gained pretty much all of his positions by not pitting and ending up in third place. But he made it work. He didn't lose positions after that, so
And exactly, sorry, Stuart.
No, that was it. Carry on.
I was just going to say a point in chat here. Also, Max didn't make any mistakes or go off today, so that helps him enormously as well. That's it. Others were making mistakes. He wasn't. I think a heat of the moment comment in isolation sounds terrible. If I listen to the full interview, there might be more to it than that. But that comment in isolation is just, yeah.
I will say, Max, I think for all maybe his fury that sometimes comes out in team radio, he's got very good at tempering his comments after the race and knowing when to shut up and maybe not put a quote out into the airwaves that can be ripped apart. He's got much better at that, I think.
Well, there was a comment he made today, Max Verstappen, and it is people. Ruby asked what the favourite team radio of the day. No, this is my favourite comment of the day. Max Verstappen was in the FIA press conference and he just asked, where are all the British press? Did they have to run to the airport? Yeah. Good lad. Now everyone's going to go, you're British, Sean. Yeah, but no. Yeah.
I think, I've had my fair share of criticism of Verstappen, but I think he's absolutely right to feel like he gets a very hard time from the British press. He does. He does, and I think he knows that they are a little bit biased against him. I say a little bit, sometimes a lot biased. I think he gets a lot of stick from the British press that he doesn't get from other places, and yeah, I think he's probably right to call it out. Maybe they can reflect a little bit on how they cover him.
Right, here comes Sean with his Max Verstappen fan hat on, so I apologise, but I'm going to say it. Crofty and Karun Chandok today, multiple times within a few minutes of each other, when he was cruising to victory, felt the need to keep going on about, but, this is what we need to see from Max. Not all that dive bombing, he's so frustrating because this incident happens and that incident. Can we just watch it and say, what a fucking good drive, Max? I know they can't say that. Well done. Congratulations on nearly your fourth title. But they just had to keep bringing it back to the negative and bringing it back and bringing it back. My condolences to Sky today for the result is what I really wanted to say at the start. I am British. I said it to you the other day, Stuart. If you're looking for a stream where you've got a British person who's patriotic and will support British drivers, I've never supported a British driver. I bizarrely don't even support the England national football team. I'm not a big Brit. Schumacher, my hero. Max Verstappen, Ferrari, Oscar Piastri, wicked. Just not a fan of a lot of the British. I think Alex Albon does sort of fall under the umbrella of British driver, doesn't he, when it comes to like Sky and that? But I think he's kind of a different, but I like a different person. I don't know. It's really hard to explain with Alex Albon. It's like he's Thai British or British Thai, isn't he? So, but he's a lovely lad. But I can't get behind British drivers. So you're not going to get British bias here. You might get Ferrari, but you'll get a lot of Ferrari bias. Good lord. Oh dear. Anyway, that's just take my Verstappen cap off a second before I start on a full rant about it. But that one question really set us off, didn't it? Yeah, I just don't. I think you can have your biases and still be balanced. And I've always maintained that, and I always am. I will get excited when Ferrari win. I will get excited when a driver I support wins, but I can still sit here and say Schumacher as my hero was a cheeky little shit in 1994, and what he did in 97 at Jerez was bang out of order. I can still do that. I'm not an idiot, but some people just can't remove themselves from that, can they? And I feel like Sky are like that sometimes. But condolences, as I say.
I will say, sort of on the same topic, but not on media bias. The sort of Max, through luck or whatever, gaining positions through the pit stops in the way that Lando did the opposite. What that did take from us was like round 4, Verstappen Norris, because he would have had to take you on track if he hadn't have sort of jumped, I think. But you know what? Maybe we didn't need that today. Maybe we didn't need to be sitting here talking about how they shoved each other off the track and what the rules are. Maybe we needed a week off from that.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. I no. That's it. If I go, we're here till midnight. That's it.
Question 2.
Yeah, Raul says Sean seems to have just ditched Stoff there in his list of drivers and brands. I don't need to mention Stoff. You know he's top of the list. Always top of the list. I liked him anyway. And then I started with the whole I highly rate him, and you lot started turning that into a meme on the channel. So I really embraced that. And then I spent at Autosport, I think it was, I was sat talking to Hazel. And she told me, Stuart, about how Stoffel is about the clumsiest driver she's ever met. And I just was like, well, I love him even more. I love the fact he's clumsy. Nick, thank you very much for your super chat. Says, what do you think of TV coverage? Oh, no. A number of times we were forced to watch replays while battles were going on. At least they used mini box sometimes. Generally speaking, Nick, I think they've improved with their world feed coverage. I don't feel like we're watching start replays for 3.5 hours. I do feel like they've kind of cut those back a little bit, and we're starting to see more picture-in-picture. So as long as I can see what's going on somewhere, I'm either in a picture-in-picture or on the main screen, that's fine. But I do agree, if we've got an overtake coming on, even if you're on replays, just cut out of it. The replay we can watch later. Let's watch the live action, and that would be my position on that. I don't think it's as bad as it used to. There's been some shocking stuff at times this season, but I think that was better today is my view on that one. And thank you as well to Rix, who says how AMR are still in P5. I know how, but come on, they are nowhere near or nowhere since I remember me. Or remember them. I think I'm trying to decode what I'm trying to read here. With all the love of Fernando, but Lance, Jesus, no worse, as Rix is absolutely great. Yeah, Aston Martin, a little bit pre-today, Verstappen in a way, are very much living off the first part of the season, aren't they? With the points they picked up there, because they've not done. I mean, let me see if I can find the where is it? Trusty Wikipedia. 2024 F1 seat. There you go, straight to the link. I might even put it on my stream deck. I use it that often. Let's have a look. What have Aston done since? They've had an okay run in the middle, but since really these last, you could say, Hungary 10th, 8th, 10th. But yeah, they're not picking up the points. Earlier in the season, we've got a 7th, a 6th, a 7th, a 6th, 6th, 5th. They're picking up more points, double points as well. It's not really worked in these certainly the last few races, and probably since around Hungary started to fall away. So I felt like they were kind of living off that first half of the season. Like I say, and with the Verstappen point, just to make it, I felt like if he wasn't going to win another race, he was clean onto this championship based on that start to the season. So a little bit like that with Aston, I think, with P5. But they are very lucky that the likes of Haas, and as it turns out this weekend, Alpine didn't hit this form a few races earlier. Otherwise, they might have been bothered. But I don't see them being caught unless Alpine shock us on and get another double podium in Vegas, of course.
Yeah, and the championship is the entire season, so you can bank a lot of points early on, even if you fall off. I mean, other people have won championships in that way. That, as you say, Max Verstappen is looking likely to, despite this stellar win today. You got to be there. You could be consistent, or you can have like a good run in the middle or at the end or something. It's just the way it goes. And other teams needed to be there at the beginning if they wanted to have that 5th place, and they weren't. So yeah. But I agree, their current pace is not reflective of where they are in the championship at all, and it does look a bit weird. But today excluded, you could say the same for Verstappen.
I just see a question. I'm going to try and fly through some more questions so we get a few in, because although I will say, I think, chat, you'll understand, most of you have been here all weekend. I've done a lot of streaming this weekend, so if I don't get to your question, don't get upset. We've talked a lot this weekend, so yeah.
Take a 3-week break.
I think I might. I'll ask the bosses tomorrow if that's okay. I think the phrase I'll get back is something to do with off, and might sound with, might start with something like pluck or something like that. But yeah, maybe they'll call me a pick. Who knows? Alonso's back can only carry them for so long. Well, that's maybe that. Do you know what, Shaddix? That's maybe why he's got a bad back. It's because he's been carrying the team for so long. There you go.
Hey.
What position does Max need to finish and win the champ in Vegas? Says Diallo. That's a great question, actually. Very fair question. So where are we at? So he's got a 62-point lead as it stands. Obviously, we may get penalties, so bear this in mind if you're listening later. So 62-point lead as it stands. That's 26 for the final 3 races, plus 8 for the sprint. That's 86 points minus 62. So that's 24. Is it about 2 points? 2-3 points?
It's 2 points.
Yeah.
Sorry, I had it written down already.
Oh, sorry.
But it's
Don't tell me that before running the maths.
Well, you were in full swing. Yeah, if he gets 2 points over Lando in Vegas, then that's it. I mean, if it goes back to normal, he probably won't. But then it becomes even harder for Norris in the following race. So yeah, Yeah,
I think Max can. You would argue, unless he has a really bad weekend, he's going to be top 5 most weekends, isn't he? So, I mean, what this run he's had lately where he struggled a bit. I mean, what's he done? Let's say struggled since Spain, yeah, because that was his last win until today. 5th, 2nd, 5th, 4th, 2nd, 6th, 5th, 2nd, 3rd, 6th, 1st. So he's going to be in and around where he needs to be. So he's going to win the championship, but Vegas might be a stretch. But then Vegas could be, conspiracy theory. It's just hit me. That's how you make up for all of that drama last year at Vegas. Give him a title decider. I'm just saying. No penalty for Norris confirmed. Ruby says LH is still the GOAT. There we go. Did anyone else cry at the Senna car drive? Just me, maybe. That was emotional for me watching it. Thank you, Ruby, for your super chat and your support. I didn't actually see it. You're going to hate me, but I didn't. I was in the little gap between quali and the race. I was having my shower and something to eat, get ready to watch the race and go for the next stream. So I missed it, but I will watch it tomorrow, definitely on, I assume, YouTube. Yes. 2025 Colapinto plans to be announced in Las Vegas. Where do you think he goes? That's from Greg. I mean, hang on. Hang on. There are ways I have to do this. So where is it? If you watched the stream yesterday, you know exactly what I'm doing here. So the rumours.
What's happening? Are you putting on a costume? What's happening?
I am. I put my Verstappen hat back on. I'm going to rant about Sky again. So the rumour is, there are reports and rumours that Franco Colapinto is signing to join a Red Bull team, and the talk is that it is to replace Sergio Perez. However, PlanetF1.com understands, this is the position I'm in now, PlanetF1.com understands that reports of a deal being done are wide of the mark, and although conversations are happening, a deal is thought to be quite a long way away. But yes, that's the official line. That's there you go.
Stuart understands that's an insane move, but very lucrative, I think.
I still think RB seems, in my head, RB seems more likely. If I remove myself from all the other noise, I think if Red Bull are going to go get him, put him in the RB. But they're obviously not interested in Tsunoda for reasons. And maybe they're thinking with Lawson, yes, he's impressed us in these first 3 races, but he has a bit, the contact with Perez, and then maybe today as well, a few incidents, and maybe they think he's a bit raw and maybe not quite ready for the step up, or maybe they're concerned about burning through young drivers like they have in the past, so let's go get somebody else, and if he's terrible in the car, doesn't matter because he's not ours anyway. I don't know how they're looking at it, but I feel like, to kind of spin that answer another way, I do feel like Colapinto has earned a chance at a full-time drive next year. I wouldn't say deserved, but I would say earned a chance with his performances. So I hope somewhere, and I kind of hope not Sauber though. So I sort of hope the Red Bull or RB rumours are true, because I'd quite like Bortoletto to get that Sauber seat as well. We're gonna go from no rookies, Stuart, this year, apart from the ones that are stood in, to an absolute crap ton next year. Half the grid it'll feel like.
It's all babies. We're going to need a crash. Have you seen them? They look like they've just come out of primary school. What is happening? We're going to have Alonso at one end, who, old black McGee staggering around, and these young it's wild. But yeah, I think he's earned a seat. I think there's opportunity for him. I think sticking him in the main Red Bull team is a wild move, but who knows what's happening with that seat at this point? At least Red Bull are talking more openly about having to do something. Like the louder Perez is about he's definitely going to be here next year. The louder Red Bull seem to be like, yeah, but
and Horner's right. Oh, that felt weird. Horner's right, because ultimately it's a results-based business. That's his line, and he's right. And Perez isn't delivering the results. He's contributing to costing them a Constructors' Championship, and I feel like if I was a team boss, there's no defense for that, regardless of how likable you are, how nice you are, how much money you bring, or how good you've been in the past. I don't feel like there's a defense for that. I want there to be, because I really like the guy. And I was one of those screaming in 2020, looking at the grid and giving it the old, how the F is this person on the grid, and Sergio Perez is without a seat. And then in swoop Red Bull and take him, which I still think was good for them and good for him. But by the way, Lando Norris says on Insta, tough day out there today, not what we were hoping for, and look, not on our side, but we'll keep fighting till the end, not going to give up until it's over. Congrats Max Verstappen for the impressive win, as you say, simply lovely. So maybe just he'll always put something out on social, but maybe just calming things down a bit. And Rick says, thank you very much for your super chat. Says, Stuart letting Sean swing, love this stream. I was just going to say, I feel like I'm going to start just recording the ends of these streams separately and putting them out as separate content, Stuart, because it's basically just F1 fans lose minds for like fight at the end of every stream. It's crazy. One more question then, and then we are going to wrap it up for today, and I'll do a quick check actually while I'm waiting for that. Nothing yet from the FIA, nothing on socials either, so I suspect we're going to be a little while yet, so keep an eye on your social media and whatnot, because there should be an answer there. Red Raver says, to be fair, since Ricciardo, no second Red Bull driver has performed really well, and we all know how well that went. Yeah, that's kind of the point I was making on rushing drivers through. I think Gasly was brought through too quickly, Albon was brought through too quickly, and look at what they've achieved in F1 since. Gasly has been performing well at every team he's been at, I think, and then got podium today, of course. And then you look at Alex Albon, who has always been highly rated since his return, but I feel like a few people are starting to raise an eyebrow at the moment. He seems under a lot of pressure. I know you made the point last week, Stuart, that it was interesting that suddenly you're looking at Albon going, interesting, given Colapinto's performance. So I still like him though, and I still think he's good. Danny says, just finished watching the race replay. Jesus. Welcome. This is what it's like after watching that and then 2 hours of streaming in the weekend we've had. We've lost it. It's gone. I was going to look for one more question. What about the rumour McLaren is adding water to their tyres? Any truth to it? That's from Thomas. I said it and I haven't had a chance again. I feel really guilty actually because I said I would, but I haven't had a chance to read up on it properly. Stuart, have you had a read of any of that? You might know a bit more.
Yeah. I mean, to my understanding, and just a quick primer on it. There's the rumour that if you just put a little bit of water in the tyres, it helps with the cooling because the transfer of heat to the rim, it makes it a little bit easier. It seems extremely unlikely from a practical point of view because Pirelli pump up the tires and give them to them, and all the teams really do is kind of just change the pressures by adding a little bit more or less of the nitrogen. It would be very hard to put the water in a mix that makes sense. And actually, Gary Anderson was doing a bit of analysis on it, and the centrifugal forces would push the water away from kind of where it needed to be. Being able to sneak water into the tires would be very, very difficult to do. It just seems pragmatically very unlikely. But I guess the FIA seems to be looking at it now. So we'll see. But I think they just. I think it just seems more likely McLaren have found a way of managing their tyres better. Is my suspicion.
Unlikely, but not impossible.
Nothing's impossible if you're sneaky enough. But it does seem like they would struggle to pull it off, I think, and make it work in the way they need it to.
It'll be interesting, won't it, now with that win for Max pretty much wrapping up the title, whether or not this all goes away now. Whether it was just a bit of a counter to some of the things that McLaren's Zach Brown has been saying lately. Throw something back at them and maybe it all goes quiet now.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. I think while I'm very pro making sure the rules are observed, I think one of my least favorite parts of Formula One, whether it's during the race over the radio, whatever, is the sir, look what he's doing. Look. I hate that so much. But I hate it less than teams getting away with doing things illegally, of course. But I think it will calm down now. I think the championship's kind of settling down now.
Yes. I think we'll leave it there, Stuart. It's been such a weird weekend. Sprint anyway, and then qualifying, sitting and streaming that yesterday, trying to find things to talk about, then streaming this morning for qualifying again, which actually did happen, and then trying to remind myself the race is this afternoon and not tomorrow, and then that happened. I mean, what a weekend, to be fair. Fantastic weekend. And I'm, really looking forward to the next race, which is ages away. I hate coming off the back of a cracking race like that and then having to wait. It's like when the race for the summer break is amazing and then you've got that long break. It's not fair. It's not fair. But thank you very much, Stuart. Sorry, I'm waffling again. I'm leaving that picture on screen now because I like it. Thank you very much, Stuart. A pleasure as always. And I'm hoping we'll have plenty to talk about for the rest of the season, that things don't go a little bit dry now that the title's sort of all but done. Hopefully still lots of action to come. Still a constructors to decide, I suppose.
And 6th place in the constructors.
Yes,
that's
very
the
true.
hottest battle. Keep your fingers crossed that Ferrari can edge closer to McLaren. That's still a possibility.
Absolutely, I am keeping everything crossed. It's quite painful at times, actually. I'm keeping everything crossed for that Ferrari constructors title. A Verstappen driver's title and a Ferrari constructors title, and I'll be drunk for about a year. So I'll be fine with that one. But yeah, thank you very much, Stuart. I'll let you go and enjoy what's left of the evening. I need to eat some food. I've not eaten today. That's
It's
scary.
been a very long day.
It has.
I had a lovely selection of meats and cheeses before the race.
I had some Tang Fastics. I lied. Sorry.
About the same then. I will chat to you in 3 weeks. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Leave a like before you go.
Yes, definitely. Thank you, Stuart, and I'll talk to you soon, I'm sure.
Bye for now.
Bye. Thank you to Stuart, and of course, thank you to you guys for tuning in as well. That's the watch on screen, Sean. Keep going. There we go to the end screen. Now, yeah, thank you again to everyone who hung around yesterday for the qualifying watch along. I know that was a bit long, and I know there wasn't a lot happening, and we were kind of just filling, but I really appreciate your support on that one. And on the channel across the weekend, some really good views on the streams, lots of likes. So please do it. We're 9 away from 300. Come on, guys, we can get there. Lots of comments as well, lots of chat. It's been fantastic. Really looking forward to the rest of this season. And I do sometimes wonder if streaming is the future, but I know some of you love your video content as well, so we'll keep doing that. On that note, I will be back this week with some content. I'm not sure what that's going to be. I'm thinking probably something on the championship maths and a few bits like that, and maybe some driver speculation. Then of course there'll be videos the following week, and then it is going to be Vegas because I think there is only a 2-week empty gap. Yes, it is indeed. And then it's Vegas week, and then of course we've got a triple header, and that is the final triple header and the final 3 races of the season. Can you believe it? We're at this point already. But yes, that's unreal. Please do follow me on social media. The links are in the description. I keep meaning to do it, but you've got the F1 Word and at F1 Word everywhere. Follow planetf1.com as well. Check them out for the latest news and Formula 1 reaction. And also head over to Planet F1 TikTok and give us a follow over there and view some of the shorts that I've been putting out, the tick of the talks I've been doing. I'm so down with the kids. It's been fun making short form content, so I might do some more on the channel as well, but yeah, we'll leave it there. Thank you for watching and for your company over the weekend. I've been Sean. This has been the F1 Word, and until next time, goodbye.